morning and welcome to the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners meeting of February 5th, 2019. Today our invocation is being led by Reverend J.C. Pritchett from Faith Church in St. Petersburg. And welcome. It's nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
And thereafter, please stand, and thereafter the the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Commissioner Welch.
Let's pray. Grateful we are for another beautiful day in Pinellas County. God has allowed us the privilege to participate in a democracy where our leadership is elected by the people. Give our public servants public strength to govern with wisdom and fairness, with intellect and integrity. 400 years after the first slaves arrived in the United States from Africa, let us celebrate the success and achievements of their descendants during Legacy Week and Black History Month. Let us remember all who did not start the game on third base, those with disabilities, those seeking affordable housing, those seeking a living wage, and those who seek to make America their home and seek the American dream. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Pritchett, and also for the wonderful legacy of events that have been going on. And also thank you, Commissioner Welch, for hosting the County Commission
Thank you all for coming.
on Saturday.
All right.
It was really awesome. Okay, we have some presentations and awards. I'm going to come down to the floor, and first we're going to do National 211 Day Proclamation with Mickey Thompson, President and CEO of 211 Tampa Bay Cares. And if you'll join me, and all of her board and friends.
Hey, how are you?
Morning.
Morning. Hey there.
Hey, Mark. How you doing, love?
Well, first I'm going to have you introduce everybody, or they can introduce themselves.
Okay, we can certainly do that. Good morning. My name is Mickey Thompson. I'm the President CEO with 211 Tampa Bay Cares, and I guess we'll start from this way.
I'm Kimberly Kernan. I'm the Contact Center Workforce Manager at 211 Tampa Bay Cares.
Bill Hagens, Major with Pinellas County Sheriff's Office. I'm the Secretary on the board.
I'm John Thomas. I'm the Vice President of Finance.
I'm Edward Perry, the Vice President of Programs and Services.
Stephen Hoshak, Board Member.
Herb Paulson, Vice Chair.
Sally Parks, Chair of the Board.
Marion Rich, Board Member.
Martha Lenderman, Immediate Past Chair.
Bonnie Bolenbach, Board Member.
Tally's out.
You may have just volunteered for something, Bonnie. Well, today, this organization is near and dear to my heart. Many, many years ago, it spun off of another not-for-profit and became its own not-for-profit to be providing services across Pinellas County for dialing 211 to get help and to give help. And so it's my personal pleasure to be here today and to do this proclamation. So every hour of every day, someone in the United States needs essential services from basic human needs to securing adequate care for a child or an aging parent. 211 is a free and easy-to-remember telephone number connecting people to information about critical health and human services available in their community, volunteer opportunities, and improving the way in which people learn about and connect with the services they need. And 211 Tampa Bay Cares, Inc., a nonprofit organization, provides 211 services via a 24/7, 365 days a year call center that is accessible to everyone, regardless of the language spoken or physical ability. And 211 provides confidential judgment-free interactions with trained 211 specialists who are able to help people get to the root of their concerns and who can provide available options for health and human services assistance. And 211 provides an online database of over 3,000 health and human services programs in Pinellas located on the 211 Tampa Bay Cares, Inc. website, www.211tampabay.org. And 211 serves as a support system for emergency management to help disseminate critical information, assist people through disasters, and provide a long-term connection to relief and recovery services. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Pinellas County Board of County Commissioners that February 11th, 2019 be recognized as National 211 Day. And again, thank you for everything that all of you all are doing to provide this critical service. And Sally, are you the spokeswoman? And this is one of our former county commissioners who served this county so capably and honorably for many years, and I just think the world of her.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Commissioner and Madam Chair. I want everybody to turn around and look at the board members. Look them in the eye. No, I want them to say thank you because you are our partners. And by the way, for me personally, there is life after being a county commissioner to a fault. But I'm so honored to be the 211 chair because we are doing a lot of good things in the community. And I might say that many of the people that are in the audience are also partners. But thank you for your support for us. We do appreciate it, and I want you to know that. We're there whether people are going through a federal government shutdown, whether we deal with people that need to evacuate because of the hurricane, or just day-to-day activities that are getting in the way of their having a life. And particularly, as Commissioner Steele said in the proclamation, for children and older adults, but everyone is really served by 211. So thank you for your proclamation. Thank you for honoring us and being our partner because it's really important to us. And we're just going through, Commissioners, a strategic plan that, trust me, will not sit in the bottom drawer because we've got a strategic planner who is assigning things to everyone, and we all are taking responsibility for involvement in it. So it's no short kind of thing. It's very immediate, but we'll be looking at it over and doing it over the next year to 3 years. Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, again, thank you all, and we'll have a photo at this point. And Commissioners, will you join me in the background?
Yeah, there you go.
We're good. We're right in between.
Uh-oh. Where? Which way? Get a little taller.
Go this way.
Get a little taller. Okay.
Ready? I'll give you a 3 count. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Right?
No, I'm not. Hey, Mac.
Nice tie, by the way, Charlie.
Okay, next is our Doing Things Employee Recognition Award. Our employees work hard every day to make our community better. In an ongoing video program, we recognize individuals who exemplify the dedication of our Pinellas County team. It's only through our employees and the excellent work they do that we can fulfill our vision to be the standard for public service in America. At Risk Management, Scott Rentz demonstrates Pinellas County's commitment to safety at work. Scott visits job sites around the county to make sure staff in the field is following proper safety precautions and using protective equipment. His recommendation last year to add a new type of protective helmet directly spared a utilities worker from a serious injury, during the county's response to Hurricane Michael. Scott is also instrumental in training our workforce on life-saving procedures such as CPR and in helping the county progress toward our goal of 100% OSHA certification for all employees. Mr. Administrator Barry Burton and Scott, would you please join me at the podium? We're going to show a video of us, and it's a snapshot of the work that Scott does every day.
If you ask Scott Rentz why workforce safety is a top priority for Pinellas County, his answer is simple.
I tell this to everybody on the road. You know, I'm not here to harass. I'm not here to take and, give you a hard time. I'm here to make sure you go home to your family at night.
A safety specialist for the Risk Management Department, Scott visits job sites around the county to identify potential risks to employees or the public.
We make sure that people wear these different types of safety gear while they're out there. We've looked at every job task and throughout the county, whether they're excavating, whether they're running a quick cut saw, whether they're wearing a chainsaw. We look at it and we say, these are the things you need to wear.
The importance of wearing the right type of personal protective equipment, or PPE, hit home during the county's response to Hurricane Michael last year. Scott had recommended a new type of helmet for utility workers that provides full face protection. While a worker there was cutting through a downed tree,
the branch, which was substantial, hit him and swept him off his feet, knocking him back 6 to 8 feet. He was rendered unconscious. They did call 911. They got EMS there shortly thereafter. When he went to talk to the doctor after EMS got there, the doctor told him, if you were not wearing this PPE, you most likely wouldn't be having this conversation. Bottom of the feet is the best way to do it for an infant.
Scott says he's proud to work for a county that puts a big emphasis on safety. When he's not out in the field, Scott is training fellow employees on how to offer life-saving help in an emergency.
We teach everything from CPR to our full-blown OSHA classes.
His efforts are part of the county's commitment to certify 100% of the workforce in OSHA safety within the next few years. For Scott, it's gratifying to see how his efforts have directly impacted the lives of his coworkers.
The system worked. It saved this guy's life. He gets to go home. It made me feel very good and very, very proud of myself here at Pinellas County that, I was, helpful at getting that instituted. I am Scott Rentz, and I am Pinellas County.
Thank you so much. What an awesome story, and we really, really appreciate the fact that you came up with this helmet and saved somebody's life. That says everything about what you're doing. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. So first, I want to start off with saying that I thank Pinellas County. I'm honored to be recognized as February's Doing Things Employee of the Month. But I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my Risk family. Everybody at Risk has been very helpful in making sure that I succeed. Everybody from claims to safety, our insurance, and our admin people. They were the ones that made my transition from private to public sector smooth by answering all the questions and things that I needed in order for me to succeed. So I probably wouldn't be here without them, including my director, Jenny Holscher.
That's great. How long have you been with Pinellas County then?
I've only been here a short time, been here a little over about 2.5 years, but it seems like a lifetime. It sure does. It feels like a good fit. I really wish I would have picked up and started in the public sector a long time ago. It's been a joy.
Oh my gosh. That says it all. Thank you so much, Scott.
Well, Scott, very, very proud of obviously what you just did, but it really highlights the importance of safety and risk management. When you do a job, maybe for 10, 20, 30 years, you can get lax in your procedures, and you're out there in the field reminding them and showing them the benefits of checking our safety procedures, reinforcing that. Sometimes you're nagging, but we need to nag because, like you said, we want them to go home at night to their family. And that's just a perfect example of why your job is so important. So keep nagging if that's what you got to do, because we need to make sure we have safe, environment for our workers. And thank you so much for everything you do.
And we'll get a photo opportunity at this point.
I'll give you 3 count. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Can I get Jenny to come up and take a picture?
Oh, sure.
Jenny? That's not a risk management issue.
Only if he gets on the next.
You might have seen Scott stand and look at that ladder before.
How about you hold this together?
I would say just take a step back. Very good. 3 count again. 1, 2, 3. Tighter. 1, 2, 3. Looks like
I know. I'm trying to keep my distance. Wait down here.
Our next agenda item is one of our partner presentations, and I would like to ask Bob Dillinger and Elliot Steele, both Board of Directors members from the Vincent House in Pinellas Park. They would like to honor and thank our former commissioner, John Maroney, who is a board member and a supporter of the Vincent House. Welcome, and thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Madam Chair, esteemed members of the Commission, and Mr. County Administrator, I appreciate the time to share with you a little bit. I first met John after our daughter's diagnosis with schizophrenia, and my wife Diane was working on insurance parity in the state legislature. John was very interested in what we were doing, and he asked us for facts from NAMI and from ourselves so that he could help with his legislative pursuits and with his constituents. We began supporting John early at his annual awards dinner for first responders, which you all know has become quite the event every year. We opened our doors at Vincent House on January 20th in 2003. Vincent House is a place where people with serious mental illnesses can come to practice work. They can work on our commercial kitchen, graphic arts, our in-house bank, and many things else. It is a place of respect and dignity where people get the opportunity to move on to paid employment. In the past 16 years, we opened up 16 years ago on the 20th of January, our members have collectively earned over $6 million, and many of these people were previously written off as unemployable. John learned about our in-house thrift shop, Hidden Treasures, and he and his son Michael would bring donations ever so often to our thrift shop. He often sat down and talked with our members, getting to know them firsthand. This is where he built the relationships with our members. Diane and I would make several trips to Tallahassee during the session to advocate for Vincent House as well as for other mental health services, and we'd always take members with us. And when we took members, many of them wore John's suits, his donated suits. So after John came on the commission, I reminded him that he may not be going to Tallahassee, but his suits are. John served as a member of our board of directors. However, when he became the county chair of the county commission, he had to withdraw because of time restraints, yet he continued to support us. Many of our members who knew John followed him through his campaigns as well as his battle with his illness. Our banners depict, you'll see the banner in a minute, depict what the person emulates, their value. The word courageous was appropriate for John as he demonstrated courage in so many ways, in the end with his battle with cancer. His banner will hang in Vincent House so that members, staff, and visitors who may never have met John will get to know John as the courageous, compassionate person he was. And yes, John's suits will continue to travel to Tallahassee during the sessions. He will truly be missed by all, and I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'd also like to thank the County Commission throughout the years for supporting us with community development block grants, social action grants, and so many things else. And for those of you that haven't been to Vincent House, I encourage you to come and visit us. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Bob Dillinger, a founding board member of Vincent House, served with Commissioner Maroney. It is somewhat emotional to be here, but we think it's important that he be remembered for his contributions to this community and particularly to Vincent House. His widow is here with also. So, again, I appreciate his contributions. I miss him. I think we all miss him. And appreciate the time to do this. And once you show him the banner. Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. I can't tell you how much it means for all of us for you to be here today and to continue to honor John and his legacy and everything that he did in this community. It is still so sad for everyone, and especially for his family. And but to have you all here and to know everything that Vincent House has done and continues to do is such a terrific model and such a terrific place. And we thank you for your commitment and everything that you do every day to change people's lives. And it's so significant. And I'd like to ask Eileen to come up and for us to have a photo together.
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Anyone else who would like to come as well? Yes.
And I just do want to remind both of you that his legacy is being carried on, and his dinner for law enforcement firefighters is on February 16th. I hope you'll both be there.
Yeah.
So nice to have you all here. Eileen, thank you for being here.
Where should we maybe over there and hold it up?
Very nice. 3 count. 1, 2, 3. 3 count. 1, 2, 3. Can you check that one quick? Take one more. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you. Chief.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Chief.
Okay, good. Good morning, Eileen.
We did too.
I have a cold. I don't want to give it to you. Thank you, Queen. Good to see you.
As I said, we miss John every day, but we're so glad that the community continues to honor him and everything that he accomplished for all of us. Okay, we're now moving on to our public hearings, and we'll start with agenda item 4.
Agenda item number 4 is resolution supplementing the fiscal year 2019 budget for unanticipated fund balances in the surface water utility, capital projects, airport revenue and operating, and solid waste renewal and replacement funds. The public hearing was properly advertised. Affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the board to be heard.
Okay, I don't have any cards for anyone who wishes to speak. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this agenda item? I'll close the public hearing. Is there any questions or otherwise from the board?
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Welch and second by Commissioner Long. Open up the voting cards. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item 5.
Item 5 is a proposed amendment to the countywide plan map. The public hearing was properly advertised. Affidavit of publication has been received for filing. No correspondence has been received. The matter is properly before the authority to be heard.
Okay. We have one card in favor, Carl Tell, and would you like to address the board briefly?
Yes, good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Quickly, my name's Carl Toll. I'm a deacon with the Clearwater Community Church, and we have a proposal to change the zoning or up in that area around the church. And some of it is a leftover from a long time ago, so it doesn't kind of make sense. So what we're going to gain as a church is the ability to improve some sidewalks and some of the things around the church because of the limit that we're in with the stormwater runoff. And so we're kind of up against a wall there. And this proposal is also good for the county because it brings us into zoning compliance. So it's a plus the way we look at it.
Are there any questions for Mr. Towle? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Well, wait a second. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak? Okay, I'll close the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Gerard and a second by Commissioner Long. And we'll open up the voting cards on that. Okay, it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to the consent agenda, which is items 6 through 12. Is there anything anyone wishes to pull?
Move approval.
Consent, Madam Chair.
A motion by Commissioner Welch and a second by Commissioner Long. Sorry. Open up the voting cards.
Madam Chair,
Passes unanimously. Yes, Commissioner Justice.
I didn't want to pull it from the consent. I just wanted to say item number 10 is a huge, it's going to be a great thing for cleaning out that channel up in the Featherstown area for the improvements up there. So appreciate the staff's good work.
Right. And I concur. That will be, that's an important project. Agenda item 13.
Agenda item 13 is the ratification of the county administrator's approval and authorization for a continuation of a $4.50 passenger facility charge at Clearwater Airport. Because of the timing necessary for the FAA, I needed to approve this, so this is a ratification of that action.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Welch and second by Commissioner Peters. Of the voting cards. Okay, that passes unanimously as well. Moving on to agenda item 14.
Item 14 is a 2019 budget amendment to realign appropriations from reserves within the general fund to the Emergency Medical Services Fund, Emergency Communications E911, E911 System Fund, and Sewer Renewal and Replacement Fund to various departments and agencies as outlined in the resolution.
A question, Madam
Any
Chair.
questions?
Yes, ma'am. That increase of $4.5 million is pretty significant. Is that something we had?
That's the next item.
Did I jump ahead of you?
Yes.
I'm on 22.
City Works.
I'm on 22. So I'm on the wrong item. Am I on the wrong item?
Yeah.
Okay, are we all on NyQuil or just me?
It's just you. You're just moving ahead.
I'm waiting for 22.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion then?
I'll move this item, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Motion by Commissioner Welch, and I think the second was Commissioner Gerard. All right.
I'm looking at
we'll open up
22
the
here.
voting cards.
City Works. Is everybody, is it a unanimous? Okay, then
Thank you. It's a unanimous vote, and we will move on to agenda item 15.
Item 15.
I figured it out. I printed out the agenda, I guess the earlier version that has this as number 22. So
I caught that over the weekend,
Okay.
and I had mine reprinted. Sorry, we should have warned everybody.
not a problem. I feel better.
Yeah. Okay. Item 15 is, this is a First Amendment to the purchase authorization with Werpert Inc. for implementation of the CityWorks as the enterprise asset management technology solution.
Commissioner Welch.
So my question is on the $4.5 million increase, is that something we had anticipated and talked about before? And
Pieces of that, and I would ask Paul Sacco, Assistant County Administrator, to come forward and provide a better explanation of the $4.5 million.
Okay.
Good morning, Paul Sacco, Assistant County Administrator. Today acting kind of as your EAM committee chairperson, lead person. So the $4.5 million increase, first I would say it's amendment to a contract that was anticipated, not at the onset of the original contract, naturally, or we wouldn't need the amendment. But when the original contract was put before you, it was a two-phase contract. There was phase 1 and phase 2. Phase 1 included discovery, planning for implementation, configuration control, some system looks and whatnot. And part of that discovery was really about looking at the departments and where they were for an enterprise rollout of this technology. So the second phase was actually advanced configuration, data migration and whatnot. And when we were here before the board, I actually went back and looked at that presentation on the slide, and in what was discussed and described to the board was the estimate for that portion of the phase was $1.5 million, I think with a 16-month schedule. And it was an estimated cost because we didn't know at that time what that costing was going to be until we really went through phase 1. And we were going to come back to the board for your consideration and approval. Well, even premature to getting to phase 2, when they went through discovery for phase 1, we realized that the departments were in such a different state of operating in the asset management world that the original proposed approach was going to be a very much overlap of 3 tracks that were just kind of run together with the assumptions that the departments were very closely operating in their asset world. We found that that wasn't the case. There was great distinction on how the departments were operating, and to better roll out an implementation, what was proposed was a 2-track approach. One for horizontal assets, which would have been mostly public works and utilities, and the second would have been the vertical assets, which would have been parks, conservation resources, real estate management, and solid waste. Now, it would have been, it's 2 distinct tracks. So we looked at that when that proposal came back of changing that approach, and the governance team looked at that and said, this is going to require a contract change even to what was originally laid out. But we agreed that we would move forward on that because we wanted to sustain the momentum and the inertia that the project had, and we didn't want to slip because the original contract had a 46-month implementation period. This 2-track approach extended that to, I think, over 60 months. I think we're at 63 months. So we just wanted to maintain what was going on with the original contract. So that's kind of where we are. So that's the background. The $4.5 million, the change with that, $1 million of that, the county responsibility of GIS readiness was rolled into this change. We don't have that capability, or we don't have that capability very well with some of the documentation that goes along with track 1 with the vertical assets, but on track 2 with the horizontal assets. With track 2 with the vertical assets, we have even less ability to make that happen, where Wolpert has that ability. So it was our responsibility outside the contract. We're now rolling that in. So that $4.5 million, about $1 million of that is GIS readiness. The balance of the $3.5 million really comes from the extension that's needed to go from 46 months out to the 63. That increases your project management and doing some of these things twice, one for track 1 and the other for track 2. So the steps and the approach of the scope have not changed. It's the fact that we're doing 2 distinct tracks. There's a little bit of overlap, but 2 distinct tracks that's requiring a greater level of service on Wolpert and the staff's part. The contract hourly rates and whatnot are all per a GSA contract. They're not negotiable. It was the hours that was being changed with the different approach. Now, I'll tell you, staff feels very comfortable in where we're at because what's before you with these costs is based on the actual data and the actual feedback and the experience that we've gone through as we've moved through track one. So really, the additional monies are going to fund what's going to be happening with track two. And there's efficiencies to be gained with that that'll translate through. And most of the money is being spent, or I say more of the money is being spent in track one than track two. And I also want to impress upon you that we're about $3.6 million into our spend. It isn't like we've overspent. We've just changed our approach and went to this first track knowing that we'd be coming back before the board. The other thing I'd like to impress upon you with Commissioner Welch's question of were we ready for this or we anticipate this? When I stood before you in June of last year, when we talked about the organizational elements that went around this project, we told you that the business case included was almost a $10 million cost for this contract, knowing that we'd come back before you. So when you're making those decisions on the organizational element, we asked you to look at the total business case when you're looking at the return on investment for the total people, process, and technology. We told you we'd be coming back at a later date for this contract amendment. So I believe we've laid that groundwork. I know some of the players are new, but we have stayed the course, and we're just here to kind of make sure that the contract now mimics what we need to do this two-track approach and bring it into finality. So I hope that gives you the background that you're looking for.
Good, Madam Chair. Thank you, Paul. That answers a lot of questions, and you did lay that groundwork. And when we talked about this before, we said this is comparable to Opus and CEGES in terms of the impact to Pinellas County. So we knew it would be a big project. And I just wanted you to state here publicly that the scope had changed, that our processes were more misaligned than we thought going in, but we are changing our way of work with this project, just like we did with Opus and CEGES. So I just thought it was important to get that information out there. The last question is, could you get us the general fund piece of that increase? We don't need it right now.
I actually have that. Okay. Mr. Berger was way ahead of me in
always
anticipating your questions. So this is your breakout for the fund areas that are funding this project. We did something similar for you when we looked at the organizational changes that were happening. But I also tell you, Bill reminded me that this has no impact to your fiscal year 19 budget. This has already been programmed in. As I said, we haven't really gone through all the spend for this project, and it's a multi-year project. So the spend's going to go over in your out years as well. But we have planned for this, OMB has planned for this, and the monies are there to do this project, not just contract, the total project, those things around that happen outside the project, the software purchases, the mobility equipment, the staffing that's required to go around that.
Could you just shoot us a copy of that, please?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Eggers.
Yeah, thank you for that. Appreciate the kind of where we're at with the technology piece. And you mentioned the organizational thing. During the budget process last year, I didn't completely support the method with which we were bringing people in, the number of people last year. Could you give us a little update on where we are with the personnel side on the hiring process for this EAM?
Absolutely. First, I would be my honor to introduce to you Jeremy Wah, who is the Director of Office of Asset Management. He is the one in the Office of Asset Management. So status, we haven't hired any more in that department yet because we're working with HR and we're allowing them to move through their pay and classification efforts. We have the ask to them to look at the classification of staffing that's needed for the complement for that. So we just haven't gotten there yet. So it'll be probably later this year as we continue moving through for those positions. We'll look at each position, even though they have been budgeted, we still look for each one to make sure it's the right time to onboard those positions. Jeremy's main process right now is coming up to speed on this contract. He's not only acting director, but he's also the project manager, so to speak, for the business side. So he's going to be wearing two hats as we move through. But on the staffing complement for OAM, we're kind of at a standstill. And the same's true for the complement that goes and spreads across the departments. Those same positions are with HR. So we're working with them to get those out. So no hires other than the lead player right now to help us through.
And then from time to time, I'm assuming we'll give updates as to where we are in this process,
Yes, sir.
bringing it home to be fully functional and whether there's been some changes and that kind of thing.
We can do
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Mr. Burton?
And along with that, Commissioner, one of the things we've also asked, this is a culture shift in kind of the way we do business, is that they continuously evaluate that to see if the number of positions and the types of positions are still necessary. So they're going to learn through this process, and they'll make adjustments as they go along. So just because it was authorized under the original complement doesn't mean that it actually will be filled.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Welch and second by Commissioner Long. And I just want to commend Paul. Many of you all may not know, but he has been wearing multiple hats for about 18 months between being an assistant county administrator over many departments, as well as the new director at Solid Waste. So
very
thank you,
much.
Paul, for
My
all that
pleasure.
you do. Thank you. Okay, voting cards, please. Okay, it passes unanimously. Moving on to agenda item 16.
Item 16 is an air quality consent order with Stephen Rivers, owner of a 10-unit apartment building located in Madeira Beach. This is to address multiple asbestos violations and a recurring consent order that will allow a penalty of $33,500.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Welch, second by Commissioner Long. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll have the voting cards then, please. Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 17.
Item 17 is approval of electric vehicle site host agreement with Duke Energy that will allow for 9 locations on county property for electric vehicle charging sites.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gerard and second by Commissioner Long. I'd like to ask our partner, Jeff Baker, to come up and tell us where the locations are and more about...
Andrew on our side.
Pardon me?
Andrew can.
Andrew.
So far.
Andrew?
Real estate.
We are very excited about this program, Jeff. And Andrew?
Good morning, Commissioners. Andrew Pepke, Director of Real Estate Management. The locations that we are looking at, the 9, are the 545 Courthouse in St. Petersburg, the Public Safety Campus, the Lellman Exchange, Cooperative Extension, the County Justice Center, Weeden Island Preserve, the Fort DeSoto Park, Sand Key Park, and Brooker Creek Preserve.
Great. Excellent.
At this time, Duke Energy has indicated the first 4, based on an initial review, have been accepted by them. Now that we are signing the site host agreement, they will look further at the additional 5 locations to determine if they are in fact acceptable for the installation.
Okay. Jeff, would you like to say anything?
Just thank you for your consideration. This is an absolute win for our community. It's one of those things. This will provide EV charging stations to the county at no cost whatsoever. Duke Energy will be installing and maintaining these devices for several years. The only other thing that to mention, just for your knowledge, is we are also working with the St. Pete Clearwater Airport, and we will likely be installing some at that location as well.
That would be an exciting location to have.
And especially with all the transportation work that's going to happen there, we're considering some of the rapid chargers. There's different levels of charging stations. We're going to be installing 30 of the rapid chargers, and we feel like, say, the cell phone lot or something like that would be an ideal location for that. So it's a great opportunity for everyone. I encourage us to move further down that path to electrification of transportation. So certainly consider this as a great opportunity and hope that you'll all be in support of it.
Madam Chair.
And can you tell us whether the public will be able to use and access these charging stations?
Actually, the public will. For working with each individual customer, we give the customers two different options. One is to have the customer pay for it as an amenity for their guests or citizens. And then we also have the chart where there'll be a credit card option. Working with the county, I believe we have selected the credit card option, except we will have a program in place to where county vehicles will not have to pay. That's correct?
That is correct. That's the tentative plan to consider charging for the use of these charging stations. However, that is not finalized yet. We're looking at that at a financial level to determine if that's the appropriate approach.
Thank you. Commissioner Long, then Commissioner Eggers.
Good morning, Jeff. It's
Good morning.
nice to see you here today. Do you know, is there an average cost that our consumers would pay for plugging into it? Do you know?
It's one of those things where it depends on the vehicle. And for example, like the Chevy Volt, for example, that's the combined gas and electric.
Right.
That only has a range of about 42 to 45 miles. So charging it is obviously going to be far less expensive than charging, say, a Tesla, because that has a 300-mile range. But based on studies that I've seen recently, the cost to charge electric vehicles is about half of what it costs to fill with gas. So using that example of the Volt, so you're only going to charge for, say, maybe 2 gallons of gas at the most. So the charge cost for that would probably be in the $1.75 to $2 range. But again, if you're charging, a Tesla that is, the battery capacity is nearly zero, it's obviously going to be more than that. So it all depends on the type of the vehicle.
Thank you. Commissioner Eggers?
Yeah, just maybe you could, you mentioned the word rapid charge. Maybe you could talk a little bit just briefly about the technology, where we are with technology as the time that it takes to charge a car. So those two examples that you gave to fully charge something.
The level 2 charging stations, which is what you see primarily, and just to put it so you'll have numbers, Duke Energy, we're installing 530 charging stations across the service territory, and only 30 of those will be the rapid chargers. So the level 2 charging stations are the ones that you see predominantly. Those, if you plug into those for about an hour, you get about 30 minutes of charge. Whereas the rapid chargers are the exact opposite. You plug in for about 30 minutes, and you actually get in excess of an hour's charge on those. So it's, especially as people, travel, if we, as we move more and more to true EV electric vehicles where there is no gas backup, when people travel, let's say someone's going from Miami to Atlanta, they're going to need that access of those, the high-speed charging stations. So. The biggest difference is the cost. I mean, the cost of the rapid chargers are about 4 to 5 times what the level 2 charging stations are.
So somebody can go in and get charged up enough in a shorter period of time. I mean, I know when I go to a gas station, for the most part, how long it's going to take.
Yeah, exactly.
In and out, right? So the electric, I'm assuming, is still taking.
It's still taking, and obviously technology is improving dramatically, and that's one of the things where, one of the reasons that we're excited about this is going to really give us a lot of knowledge to help us better plan for the future. So we're putting these in multiple different types of sites, residential units, business units, working with our municipalities and counties, and so we're putting them in all different types of areas to see how the usage is, and we'll modify our plans going forward based on this.
It's pretty much a one-size-fits-all. I mean, in terms of the charging, all the cars are about the same now.
Tesla, and again, I'm not exactly sure. They have, because sometimes if you notice, you'll go into places and it'll say Tesla charging. Those are only available to Tesla. Something about the plug-in for a Tesla is a little bit different. Now, the Tesla can charge on any, but not the Chevy Bolt, for example, cannot charge on a Tesla charge. There is something about their plug-in that makes them not accessible to anyone but their vehicles.
Interesting. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Commissioner Gerard?
Just one random question. Do the high-speed chargers take, Do they take more electricity to charge the
Yes.
car than to get the same amount of charge?
Right. So, and it does require us to put different infrastructure in to support that. And if you think of it like something at
220
home,
and-
you know, it's
yeah.
one of those things where, you know, a dryer, for example, you know, you have to use, you know, more electricity than say, you know, another device. But yeah, so it does require an additional amount of
That's why
electricity.
my electric bill went up.
Okay. Okay, any further questions? All right, great. Thank you very much, Jeff, and for the partnership with Duke Energy, and Andrew for all your hard work, and the staff. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, thank you. So we'll bring up the voting cards. Okay, it passes unanimously. We really look forward to this particular, these 9 sites and the electrical vehicles. Agenda item 18.
Item 18 is a waiver of a 30-day notice and decline of an arbitration related to the Eldridge Wild Wellfield Pumps and Motor Replacement Project with Tampa Bay Water. We are the neighboring property owner, and so we need to waive that to where they can begin immediately on our project.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Eggers and second by Commissioner Long. We'll pull the voting cards up, please. Okay, it passes unanimously. We're moving on to agenda item 19.
Item 19 is utility work by highway contractor, by a highway contractor agreement. It's a 3-party escrow agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation for State Road 699 Gulf Boulevard project, and from Park Boulevard to Walsingham Road. This will relocate our utilities so FDOT can complete their road work.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Welch and a second by Commissioner Peters. Are there any questions? Okay, well, we'll pull up the voting cards. Passes unanimously. Okay, agenda item 20 is County Administrator Miscellaneous.
Commissioners, it's exciting to ask Jim Dean to come to the podium and introduce him as our new interim president and CEO of Visit St. Pete Clearwater. As you know, Jim comes to us with over 30 years' experience in the hospitality, travel, and tourism industry. He served as president of Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. More recently, he was the president and corporate senior vice president at SeaWorld, Orlando. So Jim has joined us. We introduced him to staff on Monday. He's hit the ground running, but he brings a tremendous amount of experience and a fresh set of eyes for us to look at our operation and the way we do business. And one of the things I'll tell you is the first thing that when I met with Jim is he talked about the reach we've been able to have, and he was always jealous of the noise we were making in the tourism industry, and he had a bigger budget, you know. So he was very impressed with our organization, so it's exciting to have him on board and to introduce Jim to you.
Barry, thank you very much. Commissioners, thank you for inviting me here this morning. I'm awfully excited to get started. Today is day 2. Met the staff yesterday and very excited about the team there. We've got great plans for the spring and summer, and I'm looking forward to getting into that. And it's been an exciting 2 days already, and I'm happy to be here this morning and would love to answer any questions that you have. As Barry said, I have a lot of experience in the tourism industry. I served on the TDC board at Hillsborough County, and I served with the Visit Tampa Bay and Visit Orlando boards, and as chairman of Visit Tampa Bay. So I know the area very well, love this part of the country, and am excited to get started. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Welcome aboard. We're very pleased that you've joined us, and we look forward to very exciting things happening at Visit St. Pete Clearwater. Would anybody else, any questions?
Commissioner.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with all of you.
I'm sure we'll have questions in a week or 2.
I'm certain you will.
And
We'll give them a few days, right?
And we'll be
Well, I don't
setting.
know. Actually, I would like to just hear from you what your impressions are now that you've been there for a day and a few hours.
Yeah, the team was very impressive yesterday. I think they're very hardworking. It's a much smaller team than I thought it was. Barry was saying earlier, I've been on the outside looking in for quite a long time. I spent 5 years in Europe working for Anheuser-Busch in another endeavor, and I've seen the Visit St. Pete Clearwater impression all over the world, and certainly working at SeaWorld and Busch Gardens for many years as the president of Busch Gardens and SeaWorld in Orlando. We have a significant marketing budget, and the shout that Visit St. Pete Clearwater has around the world is impressive for what is spent, I think, from a marketing and sales perspective. So I'm excited to get involved with the team, but they seem really engaged and excited, and they were very welcoming yesterday. So I was happy to see that.
So I'm just curious, how many people attend SeaWorld on an annual basis? And then from your past at Busch Gardens, how many people would attend there annually?
Sure. We don't, we have 3 parks in Orlando with SeaWorld, Discovery Cove, and Aquatica. And they'll do almost 7 million people in attendance with about 7,000 to 8,000 employees in Orlando, and Tampa has about 6,000 employees and a little bit less in attendance, around 5 million between the 2 parks. So very large, very complicated businesses, but the tourism industry is a lot of fun, and I'm happy to still be in it, and now representing one of the best destinations in the world, and it's exciting.
Yeah, but
You're right, we are one of the best destinations in the world.
Absolutely.
Well said.
I have a couple follow-ups, if you don't mind.
Yes, and then Commissioner Eggers.
So I am struck by that attendance number when I think back to a little over a year ago when I was chair of the TDC. We had 8 million visitors here that year. I can only imagine that it's gone up. And to that point, I'm curious about whether or not you have been able to assess your involvement in the international show that goes on in London and Berlin. I found that to be extraordinary when I had the opportunity to visit there, about who our competitors were and what a great job we were doing competing with them and usually winning that competition. Yes. But it was a real learning experience to hear the voice of our contractors there that work on our behalf.
The international markets represent a huge opportunity, of course, and in Orlando, they have the benefit of entertaining almost 70 million visitors a year, and a great high percentage of those are international visitors from South America and Europe. And so, and I know a lot of them come to the West Coast, because I know when I was in Tampa, our objective was to try to pick tourists off from Orlando and try to get tourists off the beaches as well. So I'm excited to find out more about our spring and summer plans for our international reach, because our beaches here are world class and known around the world. So we should aspire to drive more tourism from the international markets for sure. They spend a lot of money when they're here with us, and we need to take advantage of that.
Are you going to be living here?
I am. As a matter of fact, I found an apartment late last week, and I will be spending the first night there tonight. So
well, good
we'll
for
see
you.
how that works.
I can't wait till you come back and hear what you have to say about our public transportation options.
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Eggers.
Well, the first question was kind of what you asked. Maybe just a snapshot, your view of the coming year and tourism in general. How do you see it kind of globally? How do you see it kind of in Florida and in this area?
Sure.
And then I had a follow-up question.
Great question, Commissioner. We've had some down years with international tourism as the economies in certain markets, particularly South America, has been under some pressure, and that's come back some in recent months. So I know that Visit St. Pete Clearwater has had incredible success over the last few years, and that comes with a little pressure, to be honest. I feel pressure to keep that momentum going. It's easy to come to an organization that's struggling and create some activity and get things moving back in the right direction. More pressure when things are going really well, and they're going well here now. So I'm looking forward to getting involved with the team and how we can continue to grow our tourism here, because it's exciting to get an opportunity to do that, and I think there's still a lot of upside to go, and I'm getting excited to meet a lot of the hoteliers and the various attractions. And it's a very multi-pronged approach that we're taking to drive tourism from the arts and the crafts and the restaurants and certainly the beaches and the attractions. We've got a lot going for us here.
Well, I just also wanted to welcome you, and we look forward to getting your continued thoughts along the way. But again, I think it's great to have somebody like yourself coming in on an interim basis to kind of give us a fresh eyes, because I know we're doing a lot of good things, and
we really are.
So it'll be good to hear that independent kind of confirmation, but also some of your constructive comments, constructive criticism, if you will, not only on things we may be doing internationally, but here administratively, perhaps maybe how we can tighten some things up. But just, I know that that'll be an important part of your being here too, so I look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. I'm not one to sit back and take much time, so I started yesterday with the beginnings of a review of our administrative procedures, and certainly around some of our cost initiatives. We travel a lot, so I wanted to make sure that I understood the procedures around approvals and reviews of travel. So we started that review yesterday afternoon.
Great.
After I got my introduction.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah.
Look forward to hearing more from you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and again,
Thank you very
welcome.
much.
Welcome and thank you.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 21, County Attorney Miscellaneous.
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you, Joel. And next is agenda item 22.
Agenda item 22 is approval of a restated deferred compensation plan document as requested by Human Resources to allow a separated participant to roll funds into the plan after separation. This occurs with the other deferred compensation programs, but it doesn't currently with Hartford, so this would align it to where they're consistent.
Okay, and this actually came to my attention via a retiree from Pinellas County. And they essentially could not move their monies into this plan, and so this makes a change to allow that to happen. So thank you to everyone for making this happen, and it's an important benefit for our current employees as well as our retirees.
So it's just a way to help them do
It's just allow the
affect change.
retiree to move their,
No cost to us, no additional cost.
no cost to us.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Eggers and a second by Commissioner Long. I almost was going to hand the gavel over on this one because I have spent many hours on this.
Would you like to do that so you can make the motion?
No, that's all right.
Okay.
We already made it.
I know, but you
Already
know,
made.
if she really wanted to. that'd be
Flip
good.
the voting cards, please. Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 23, which is county administrator reports.
We have 3 items today. First, I'm very excited to ask Dr. Cynthia Johnson to come forward, and we're going to do a soft rollout of our revised Small Business Enterprise Program. She's taken the lead and represents the County Administrator's Office on the rollout of this program, and so I'll turn it over to her to give you an update of where we're at and where we're going.
Good
Morning.
morning.
Hi.
Morning.
It is absolutely my pleasure. Cynthia Johnson with Economic Development. Is this the little clicker? We're going to give a brief update to the Small Business Enterprise Program. As you all know, in Pinellas County, about 50 employees businesses with 50 or less employees make up about 95% of our business base. So we're talking about a large business base here when it comes to small businesses. So in 2002, the board deemed it necessary to create a small business enterprise program. And last year in January, Commissioner Welch asked the question, how is the SBE program going? Well, I wasn't able to really give him a response to that, but now that we've come and 9 months later spent a lot of time analyzing and looking at what we had going on and the opportunities of what we could have going on and engaging the business community, we have this report for you today. So I'm just going to basically share with you what the program description is and why we're doing this, talk about some of the 2018 initiatives, and identify some of the key findings that the consultant Morrison and Associates did for us, and some recommendations, and share with you our new program criteria. The Small Business Enterprise Program is not just a set-aside program for procurement, but it's a partnership between economic development and our purchasing department to talk about how can we increase opportunities for our small businesses to do business with Pinellas County. It's a multifaceted program, and what the program does is seeks to remove barriers to opportunity, increase awareness about opportunities, increase our communication with our business community, as well as providing training and support to the small businesses that are certified in that program. So in 2018, when Commissioner asked the question, you charged us with going back and really looking at what the program is and what it starts with. And doing so, we were able to hire Morrison and Associates. I think Mr. Morrison is here. Hi, Bob. Morrison and Associates, and Bob was charged with an assessment. We asked him to look at our current program, give us some recommendations on what an effective program should look like. We asked him to refine our vendor eligibility, to look at how do we really identify what the local market of small business enterprises are for Pinellas County, and to give us some recommendations on the needs for the infrastructure and software. So in 2018 of April, we had a collaborative lab session. I know you all have participated in one of those before. It was awesome. We had over 140 businesses, partners, and our staff from here in the county. We had the county administrator, Commissioner Welch was there, as well as many other team members of the county. We took a position of listening. So we sat there and we listened to the business community. And some of their concerns were access to opportunity. They talked about the diversification of the supply chain. They talked about how can they get support when they get the opportunity, and what we were going to do to help them lead them down the road of success. Well, some of the solutions, we didn't just have a conversation, a one-way conversation. We broke out in sessions and we talked about solutions. We talked about what can make an effective program, what would help our businesses be successful. And that was getting more access, diversifying the supply chain by really communicating and participating in outreach efforts and support systems. That's one of the biggest things that came out of this entire session, was that it wasn't just about the procurement opportunity, but it was the full scope of supporting the small business. So that's what we took away that day. So Mr. Morrison and I got to work and work and work and start working on what we need to do. His report gave us a couple of key findings. These findings included that he determined that the program really lacked ownership. It was a self-verifying program. It was paper for about 14 years. You submit a paper, you may get a response back because there was no ownership to the program. There was, it was inadequately staffed. No one was really controlling what was happening with the program. It was there pretty much in name only. We had limited capacity for statistical analysis. That's why when Commissioner Welch asked the question, we had no way of tracking that information, so we could not give him accurate information on that outcome. Nor did we have any champion at the county administrator's level. We missed a lot of opportunities for our SBEs to participate with us with having a program that did not have any real substance to it. So, with that, Mr. Morrison recommended a few things to us. First was to get some software to make sure that we had a way to track the information and accurately answer the question and monitor what was happening with it. I know I've talked with Barry, and we have an SBE planning committee that we've met continuously for the last couple of months. And one of the things we talked about is what gets measured gets done. With this software, we'll have an ability to do that. We talked about leadership realignment and the fact that I appreciate the board so very dearly for approving 4 positions. So we actually have staff that we can dedicate to this initiative to help with the management and development of it. We increased the SBE sheltered market threshold. It initially was at $25,000. Now it's at $100,000. Vendor certification reciprocity. We have 24 municipalities in this community, but one of the biggest things that came out of the listening session was our business owners don't just see Pinellas County only as their market. They see the region more as a market, and I'll get into that in a short while. The other one was when we're looking for ready, willing, and able vendors, we needed to make sure that we had policies that support when we find those ready, willing, and able vendors, that we have policy to help them access those opportunities and to provide them with technical assistance and training. The technical assistance and training piece is very important because our businesses, as we work in economic development, we're just not interested in getting them in business. That's not the goal. The goal is to keep them in business and help them grow so they can create jobs. So one of the major changes that we made to the program is that now we require businesses to be in business at least 6 months before you get into business. That's just to give us time to analyze where their business needs are and help them match up more accurately with the opportunities that are coming. Because we were getting business owners who say, okay, Cynthia, I got it, I filled out my application, now where's the opportunity? And then when the opportunity came, they didn't have the capacity to perform. So this way, we have an opportunity to make sure that we prepare them for success and not just for an opportunity. This is the new criteria that we're all excited about. The program is a sheltered market program. It remains race and gender neutral, and the market is between 5,000 and 100,000. The business must be located in Pinellas County, Hillsborough, Pasco, or Manatee counties. It must have a commercial function and have 50 or less employees. The annual sales for goods and services over 3 years is the gross of $3 million. And for construction-related businesses, it's an average sales over 3 years of $8 million. We also are requiring them to participate in education or business development activities. And the reason we're doing that is because we have adapted a new software. So we are totally doing a new way of doing business and tracking business. And we want our businesses to be successful. So when they have that one-on-one engagement, we're going to make sure that they understand that whole process. Now, these are the impactful outcomes that we are experiencing right now, and there's many more to come. One, having those 4 dedicated staff, we have really been able to get all of the infrastructure in place that we need to get things going. I have 2 of those staff persons with me in economic development, and then Joe has 2 over with him in purchasing. Now, increasing the sheltered market is probably one of the most beneficial opportunities. When we increased the sheltered market from 25,000, that was a pool of about, about $2 million of opportunity. When we enlarged the pool to 100,000, that's $40 million of opportunity. So there lies a huge opportunity for our businesses. We are in the process of revising our CIP processes to include construction and design consultants so that the SBEs will have a much greater opportunity to participate in bids and as either a prime or a subcontractor. We're going to implement some aspirational goals in those CIP projects and really look to track them. The software that I have mentioned is really has already proved itself to be a very useful tool. This software will help us be able to identify SBEs, not only externally for primes when they're looking for subs, but internally, when we are internally looking for small businesses to do business with, now we'll have a database to go and identify those businesses. The software has built-in monitoring triggers that require a shared responsibility. What I mean by that is one of the things that was shared with us at the listening session is some of our SBEs, the subcontractors, our prime contractors will come and present to you all what they will do on the project. They are awarded the project. They identify the subs that they'll be using. They get awarded the project, and a lot of times the subs weren't being used. So those subs never got that real opportunity, and we didn't have a way of tracking whether they was using the subs that they said that they would use. Now with this software, my manager, the prime has put the information in, so it makes them a partner with us. And when they put the information in, we check it and we make sure, and then we communicate with the subs. Even when it's time to get paid, we say, you know, did you get paid? They can go on their phones and say, yes, got paid this amount on this day. We then have a tracking system where we can monitor that entire process. This is very different than how we've been doing business. However, in talking with some of the general contractors, it's a way of doing business that they're familiar with. So that's really good. Now our SBEs will get notifications and emails from us about opportunities. They'll also get an actual certificate that lets them know that your application was submitted successfully, because I can't tell you the number of calls I give it, like, I submitted an application like 6 months ago, I haven't heard anything. I saw your name on the website, you know, because we had no ownership of the program. Accountability at all levels is really key to us, because what it does is it allows us internally to make those good faith efforts to create strong small businesses. And then with engaging the primes and the subs in the process, it creates more of a relationship instead of just, you know, we're a provider and they're a supplier. So we really look forward to that. And each one of our SBEs currently, when we started this program, well, when we revised the program and kicked it off in January, we were at about 72 vendors in our database. And that's not a lot, knowing that we have so many qualified small businesses in our community. And so we put a goal together to increase that in the first quarter at least by 25%. Well, I'm happy to tell you, as of yesterday, we were at 26% of increasing the database already, and that's just with 2 outreach programs.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Long.
So how many do you have now?
We have 87.
Thank you.
Right now, and Commissioner, if I could,
Yeah.
we have 87 that are registered with Pinellas County. With our new B2G software, because we are a user of the software, we get access to other communities that use the software. So that means Hillsborough County, SBEs, we have access to them. The Tampa Aviation Authority uses the software. The city of St. Pete is exploring the software and going through an implementation for it. And the city of Tampa uses the software. So with that, we have access in our database of invitations to 300 more SBEs that we've already identified. And we've invited them, and we're just waiting for the response for them to come back and say, yes, I want to join. But that's one of the cool things about this software, that it allows us to grow our database so easily. And I've been working very diligently with our local partners, PSTA and the Pinellas County Schools District, as well as the city of Clearwater, is exploring using this database so we can start working together to create more opportunities for our SBEs. Yes, sir.
When the contractors come in, I think in a lot of cases we're targeting a lot of subcontractors out there that are the smaller businesses. So the contractors are going to be able to. I'm trying to think of how are we going to give more points in the RFP process for utilization of the subs, the SBE subs?
We're looking at aspirational goals to put in our CIP projects, where when they have SBE utilization, it will be a point system. If Joe wanted to come up, he can address directly how we're going to do that in the procurement process. But what we're currently doing is working with legal to make sure that all of those policies are appropriate and put in place.
Yeah, because if I'm a contractor, I'm going to want to get my preferred subs approved,
Absolutely.
As well as explore others that have qualified. But
and I think that that's really one of the benefits of having the SBDC work with this program, because when we don't want to say this to the general contractor, you can't use who you prefer to use. But we're saying we want you to look at who you are using. If they're a good sub for you, we want them in our system. So we're going to invite them to come into the program.
because then it provides other opportunities, perhaps as a contractor down the road. So, yeah.
Thanks, Cynthia. Joe Lauro from the Purchasing Department. Essentially, when we go through a request for proposal, which is a subjective process, we have points that we could assign based upon criteria. One of the criteria, like Cynthia said, will be SBE participation. So you can actually assign a higher percentage of points, and that's what we intend to do. And we use RFPs to hire most of our design consultants, just as an example. The state of Florida, through the Consultant Competitive Negotiation Act, actually requires that. So we'll just up the percentage accordingly. When we bid CIP projects, we'll actually have an aspirational goal, like Cynthia said, in there that the prime contractors have to meet. So they'll go out and source SBE firms to assist in the construction of the project.
So as far as getting the word out, you feel like we're making strides in getting that word out, because we don't really want to be hurting people that
absolutely.
haven't gotten on board with this. We're really trying to get more folks at the table and participating.
Yeah, we want to have this is a competitive process. And so what we want to do is make sure we have a competitive pool of SBEs to compete for these opportunities. And we're going to do our best to support them in that competitive process. And that's where one of the positions is paramount to the outreach. We, to date, we have done four outreach sessions, either at a chamber trade show or the Minority Supply Development Council. Yeah. They had a trade show. We participated in that as well. So we partner with Joe, and Joe has a staff person and one of my staff persons. We're going to these outreach events and really talk about how to become an SBE so that you can compete for the projects that we have.
I mean, I don't want to go too far with the SBE concept, but the idea would be for them to qualify for some of the work we're doing, but at the same time, with some of the guidance that we may be providing, make them more qualified in the other world out there. That you know, they may be better suited now to get some other work because of the quote training that we're doing, so to speak.
Commissioner, that is one of the things that Mr. Morrison really reiterated, is that when you have race and gender specific programs, they're designed to go away. You know, if you meet that, there's a deficiency, there's a goal, you meet it, they go away. But with a small business enterprise program, it's designed to cultivate that small business and prepare them for greater things, so that you are always a part of cultivating them and making sure that they are creating jobs.
Yeah, I think it's great, because a lot of small businesses are so mired in getting work done that they don't have time to think about that other aspect, forward thinking, that might make them better qualified, not only for county work, but the outside work. So anyway.
And we're going to partner them up with every entity that's around here. Yeah. We're going to really work on making sure we have some partners. The other program improvement was that we are enhancing the relationships with our primes and our subs. You know, we have some subs who are really eager to support and grow their subcontracting base because they may have not gotten big enough to be a prime, but we're working on that. And then the long-term impacts will be a sustainable stability and growth in the local small business community. Our goal is to create more and better jobs for Pinellas County through this process. And so our next steps that we're going to be doing with this program is we've submitted to Barry a 30, 60, 90-day plan. We're on target with that plan. In the first 30 days, we're looking at processes and making sure that we have proper legal structure. We're revising a lot of our policies. And in my department, I'm creating a lot of new policies because we have a new program. In our 60-day process, we're looking at finalizing those processes and those new policies and making sure that we have the software that is good and ready to roll, and we have incorporated and invited the new vendors that I spoke, the 300 that we've invited, and the ones that are already in the database. And then, so what we're going to do is to continue to recruit ready, willing, and able vendors. And if they're ready and willing, we'll help them get to the point of being able to compete. But we're recruiting ready, willing, and able vendors. We're going to continue to cultivate the training for our internal and external clients because it is a new way of us doing business here in the county. So I'll be spending a lot of time internally talking to the department directors and those of us who have authority to purchase goods and services. We're going to be talking about how can we engage the SBE and how can we use our new database to find those. And then we're collaborating with our regional partners. And upcoming March the 1st, we're going to have an update to the community. We really want our business owners to know that we were listening. When we called them all in and they showed up last year in April, we listened and we did something about it. So we're going to give them an update of where we are, share with them the new software that we're utilizing, and then we're going to have breakout sessions. The school district of Pinellas County has agreed to come and share with that group any opportunities that they have upcoming, and they will register anybody who wants to do business with them. The city of St. Pete and the city of Clearwater have been invited and agreed to come and do the same. And then we'll have a room for PSTA who will be there and offering the same opportunities. And of course, the county will be there with our opportunities. So I just want to say thank you for listening to us. The community spoke, you listened, we put things in action, and things are really moving forward. So for that, in a small business community, you know, that's my heart. If I got to do small business and educate, I'm really excited. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And I know you also presented when we had our Economic Development Council, and they were very receptive to the program and appreciative of all the work that you all have been doing, and Joe as well. Mr. Administrator, Mr. Burton.
Well, obviously, she's done a tremendous job putting this together, her and Joe, and we really appreciate it. But, you know, it's also to keep this front and center into our culture and the way we do business. She's going to be working with our departments to where they can incorporate that as part of their day-to-day look. You know, when we do construction contracts, you can put it out to one general, or you can break it apart to where you create opportunity. So we'll be looking at different ways in which we can make this part of our ongoing day-to-day operation. And finally, to hold ourselves accountable, we're going to be giving updates to the board on an ongoing basis. That way we don't slip back and not have it front and center and be part of our day-to-day conversation. So those are the ways in which we'll keep this going, build on the momentum that they've started, and keep this part of our ongoing business operations.
Thank you. Commissioner Wells?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to thank, first of all, the Commission for your support of this initiative. It's been about a year since we first had the conversation and talked about $70,000 out of $400 million actually being accomplished through this, and that's less than 1/10 of 1%. And we all decided that was not good enough, that we wanted to have inclusive business processes. We are a huge economic engine, not only year to year, but the penny represents $1 billion of capital investment just from our share, and we wanted folks to be able to participate in that economic engine. So I want to thank the board. Certainly want to thank Barry as well. You were asked about this during your interviews, and the public interviews as well. I know you were asked about that by a couple of folks, including Ms. Scruggs from the NAACP and others, and they certainly are supportive and sent us some documentation last night. There's still some questions we need to answer, and I think you answered some of those this morning. But I think it's a real positive process, and you know, this has been talked about here and there over the years, but I'm sure you've heard this, Dr. Johnson. Folks want to make sure the momentum carries forward and that we follow through this time, and I see that happening. Just a couple of questions I had, and one pertains to the letter from the NAACP, Clearwater and St. Pete, and they talked about the removal of race-based criteria. And I just wanted to note that we talked about this last time, and in the Morrison recommendation, that until we have the data that actually tells us what vendors we're utilizing in participation, then you can't really move forward with the disparity study. So that's one reason we got the software, so we could actually know who we're utilizing, and that would inform this board in the future as to whether we move forward with the disparity study. So that is not off the table, but at the same time, there are things we can do right now in terms of increasing access, removing barriers, and we're doing those things. Yeah. So I still view this as a two-track process, and we're moving forward. And certainly the board has stepped up with the staffing, with the software, and you know, I think the most important thing, as Barry said, is this: we have to be accountable. It has to be known as a priority throughout the organization. Moving forward, you know, there was a recommendation for a direct report, Office of Small Business Supplier Diversity. Now Barry's convinced that we don't need that at this point, but Cynthia is the champion. Is that correct?
That is correct. Rather than having a separate person in my office overseeing it, she said she needs work. She needs work to be done. And it also is, it's a tremendous match to have her on the small business side, you know, be able to link up both assistance and also opportunity.
And she has a direct line to you or a dotted line to you on this issue? Yes. And I think that's important that everybody understands that. The other piece is collaboration. You've reached out, going back to the meeting at Lakewood High last year with the school board, with the city of St. Pete. You had vendors there, business folks. The collaborative lab was tremendous, you know, overflow in the room. So the collaborative process of actually hearing from the business community is very important. I just want to commend you on that as well. And I'm excited about where we are. The last question is on the software. Is that the B2G now? Is that fully implemented, or are we still?
Yes. The software is fully implemented. We are waiting to upload and once a month, we upload all of our contracts into the software, but we only do it once a month at the end of the month. So at the end of February, I have in there right now about 8 contracts that I put in there so that I can test the system. So at the end of February, we've been working with, and if I could just take a moment to say thank you to Office of Management and Budget, Finance, OTI, BTS. All of us had to come together to make this software work. So Finance uploads the contracts at the end of the month, and then all of the systems, you know, go red, you know, go green, if you will, and everything populates, and then we start to monitor and communicate back and forth. The part that we are currently in implementation is the registration system. Right now we have 2 systems. We have the online registration system that, you know, we created about 3 years ago. The software is integrating that system so that we can layer a registration system from B2G on top of the contract information, so we won't have to have 2 separate systems. So that implementation of putting the vendor registration system on top of the contract system is in progress right now. And we plan for that to be completed as well when we have the first upload of real data. So right now, we do have real contracts, but they're not available to the public. However, the public can still go on to pced.org/SBE and register as an SBE, and we are receiving all of that data.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner
Just one-
Eggers?
Yeah, just kind of following up on a couple of different thoughts. I think that, I think this is going to be a really exciting program to help coach, at the same time provide opportunity. So the business world, the big contractors are always looking at, getting qualified subs. It's tough. It's tough out there for them. So the fact that we're not only trying to get folks registered, that's the beginning, because I think this business, like any business, is about relationships. It's about providing your background and your story. So I think when we have those opportunities to introduce the two, I think that would be a good thing. You have a contractors day or subcontractors day where, you can have people in a big room and just telling their story to contractors that are maybe out there looking to get some new folks on their team. So whether it's direct benefits to contracts that we may be giving or indirect benefits through a general contractor, I think there are a lot of ways that we can help step that effort up. So anyway, just a side comment.
And we're going to continue to do that outreach with our reverse trade show that we have each year. We're going to expand it even grander this year. It's going to be in October. We have not finalized the date with St. Pete College, but it will be in October, where we're going to do exactly that, Commissioner.
great.
We're going to try to do some matchmaking and also some display of opportunities with all the other agencies, private and public agencies.
And all of our chambers know about this going on.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Okay, thank you. We have some members from the public that wanted to speak on this item. So we'll start with Lorraine Gregory.
Good day. Good day.
Hi.
Morning.
Thank you, Commissioners of Pinellas County, for all of the wonderful work you've done regarding the small business program, the Small Business Enterprise Program. I applaud you on your efforts. Dr. Johnson as well, excellent. We're loving this. We're loving this. I'm Lorraine Gregory, and I'm Project Director for Impact St. Pete. We are an initiative of the 2020 plan. We support growing minority suppliers and community-based businesses from South St. Petersburg. Our work is completely aligned with business development organizations such as SBDC, the Greenhouse, the City of St. Petersburg, and other government organizations, as well as corporate, who are seeking qualified minority suppliers. Our work in the community is to ensure that the suppliers we have identified, we have vetted, we have spoken to, are qualified, able, and ready, corporate ready for business with entities such as yourself and other corporations. We want to work in support of our minority business organizations such as the Greenhouse, SBDC. We want to support you in securing the minority suppliers that are ready. We strongly believe that we are advocates for our community. We believe that when we strengthen our local suppliers, we create better communities. When we advocate, we support the economic fuel, as Commissioner Wolf says, of our small businesses. They're vital. They're vital to the sustainability of our communities, and we want them to prosper and be empowered for opportunities. We are delighted with the work. We plan to support Dr. Cynthia Johnson wholeheartedly in finding these suppliers, getting them registered with you. Please reach out to us. We're here to help, and we want to be a key support in this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Deborah Figgs Sanders. Is Deborah here?
She's coming.
Oh, I'm sorry. You snuck in the back, and welcome.
Good morning. I am coming, again, I'm Deborah Figgs Sanders, and I am coming representing the residents of District 5. Today I am a concerned citizen, a resident, and as the children will say, the candidate for District 5 St. Petersburg City Council. I'm coming because I want to thank Dr. Johnson and the county commissioner who's actually here to look at our SBEs. And that is one of the platforms that I have been so vocal about just in my advocacy over the years. Thank you, Commissioner Welch. Thank you, Dr. Johnson, because we all know that sustaining an economic community is going to get us to the next level. I'm glad to see, I think Jessica from the City of St. Petersburg Greenhouse is here, yay, which means that there seems to be some type of inner working of a partnership. One of the things that I am so proud of Jessica and the Greenhouse is that they've been able to do some out-of-the-box thinking, and we're going to need that and able to move forward. So for that, on behalf of myself, small business owner, my husband, small business owner, I want to thank you for actually considering this program. And actually, the one takeaway I have from this, Dr. Johnson, is accountability. You all understood that we were lacking in an area. You all understood that we all had to step up and make some changes. We couldn't continue to do business as usual and think we were going to see a difference. So Dr. Johnson, thank you. 2020, everyone that's actually supporting it, but on behalf of the residents, thank you for giving us the opportunity to see a better way and to have the sun shine on everyone in Pinellas County. I do appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jonathan Graham. And then the last speaker is Loretta Calvin. Good morning, Mr. Graham.
Good morning. First of all, I'd like to thank Commissioner Welch for asking the question a while back so that the whole process could start going. And I want to say two things. One thing is that you've employed two well-respected people to get this process running. Dr. Johnson, of course, and then Bob Morrison, who has done it in different areas. And it's been a success when he's completed all the things that need to happen. So I'm here. I'm a lifelong resident of St. Petersburg, third generation company, construction company. And I'm so glad to see this going on and this interest now taking, you all taking a lead or looking at this process because quite frankly, I do work everywhere else except for in Pinellas County because the program has been so no one has taken ownership of the program. Nothing has been done with the program. And so, yes, I now applaud that there is some processes getting in place to do something about it. You know, I do a lot of work in Hillsborough County, a lot of work in Palm Beach County, everywhere else except for Pinellas County, and everywhere else except for the school district. We've worked on over 200 schools in Hillsborough County, Palm Beach County, and other places. So it really, I hope, and I'm asking not for you to say, hey, we're going to do some outreaches and we're going to, you know, have some lively discussion, but not be advocates of the process because that's what it's going to take for it to be successful. You've given her some tools and you've done some things at the beginning, but this process is a long process for it to really work. And there has to be advocacy from all of you all for it to keep the traction that it needs to go on. So I applaud you. We support you. We want to do work in where we live. I still live here. I have family that lives here, that, you know, third generation company. So we applaud you and thank you so much. And we hope that it continues.
Thank you. Loretta Calvin. And then I have another card from Zebby Atkinson. Good morning.
Good morning. I am Loretta Calvin, Loretta Monroe Calvin, a lifetime member of St. Petersburg, born and raised here. And I'm a small business owner, and I am a twice certified diversity strategist and also certified minority woman business enterprise. And all the accolades have been given, so I don't need to repeat that, to the wonderful work that Ken did to raise the flag and for you all collectively to hear it. What I want to do is bring just a little bit of humanistic piece to this. I worked many years in the corporate world, so I know all about systems. I know all about software. I know all about putting infrastructure in. I know all about processes and those things. What I want to ask or suggest are two things. One, for me, what you may want to consider, Mr. Burton and Dr. J, is the element around those contractors, say the large contractors. Let's just take construction for an example. Like the speaker before me, I do a lot of my work in Hillsborough County because of the ease of doing business, and I'm excited that I'm going to be able to do business here, hopefully. The piece that has worked well in construction, one of the largest ones I'm working on right now is with Moffitt, where Moffitt, put a little pressure on the general contractor to make some really sound decisions of how do you integrate SBEs into that process. The one that we're working on now, I'm happy to say that we're going to be writing a story about where this particular contractor, who is a minority, does not have the infrastructure or the experience to take on a $500,000 deal. But the way that, and I'll give kudos to Creative Contractors, that's who's doing it, the way that Josh has identified this individual and is giving him the tools. A part of the job that I do is I work with him to make sure that he gets what he needs. And then secondly, the other piece is that Moffitt is on that every month. There's a reporting requirement to make sure that they get what they need. So the human piece of it, I think there's an opportunity to think about what to do with respect on the decision not to have a supplier diversity entity on board. I get it from a budget standpoint, but there might be an opportunity to think about that a little broader, because supplier diversity is a little bit of a different animal than the big SBE. And so I'd love to be able to hope that in the future you can think about that a little broader. So the human piece, I would say, don't forget that. Don't lean on systems only. And I think that might be my time. So thank you so much. Thank you for your support. And I think we're all walking out of here with a winning attitude. Appreciate it.
Thank you for being here today. Debbie Atkinson. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. My name is Zebedee Atkinson IV. I am the president of the Clearwater Upper Pinellas County branch of the NAACP. Here today I will be speaking not only for my branch, but also the St. Petersburg branch. President Scruggs and I have gotten together and put together a joint paper. After reviewing a couple of things, one of the primary things that we looked at was under the new criteria, the removal of the gender and race in that. And like the speaker before me and several that have spoken, we were concerned when we saw that because, and after hearing Dr. Johnson, there is not the data that shows what the rate of minority contractorship is in Pinellas County. So we understand that now. That was another thing that we noticed, there's no data. So that has been addressed. Still that concern is there for us, but overall, after looking at the program, we like the program. We think there are some things bringing it to the community. We've talked to the business community now about it. So now bringing it forth to the community would be a good thing so that the community, other small businesses that may not have been invited, now understand and know. I concur with the findings that the Morrison group came out with. I have seen them firsthand and have worked with Dr. Johnson in the past. And we just look forward to the new environment, the new changes, and hopefully the inclusion of all people. We don't deny anyone the chance to work. We are for that, but we look specifically at the African American and Latino population in how they are also getting the work. So that's it. I didn't use all my time.
I know.
Y'all have a good day.
Thank you very much. Dr. Johnson, any concluding comments?
No. I just want to echo the thank you to you all, and we're very excited. My team is excited to really create a sustainable program that really has true benefits, and I look forward to providing you quarterly updates. I'll be providing monthly to Barry about how the program is going. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, may I make just one other comment?
Yes.
I just want to thank the members of the community who have been engaged since last year when we talked about this. And you have folks here that didn't speak for interest of time, but Reverend Peterman is here. I see Pastor Murphy from Mount Zion and other folks who are here just for this item. So I just want to thank them for being engaged, and certainly President Atkinson, did he leave already? From the Clearwater NAACP, and President Scruggs have been involved from the start and give us some real constructive feedback. So I just want to thank everybody for staying engaged.
Well, again, Commissioner Welch, thank you for your leadership on bringing this to our attention and for helping to shape the program. And we're looking forward to great successes. And
So am I.
thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Administrator, the next is Plan Pinellas status update.
And we have Rebecca Sanville from the Planning Department coming forward to give you an update. This is our comprehensive plan, and they'll tell you where we're at and where we're going with updating our plan.
Thank you.
Hi,
Rebecca Stonefield, Pinellas Planning. As just mentioned, I'm here to give you an update on the progress we've made to date with this project, as well as where we're moving forward. So a little bit of background, the comprehensive plan went through its last major update in 2008, and there are a number of emerging issues and trends that we feel we need to address in the update. So a little bit of background here. The current comprehensive plan has over 1,100 policies across 13 different elements. These different elements may not apparently reflect how the different policies may interrelate and also have repetitive language in different elements that may only need to be stated once. So trying to clean up this plan is important. Additionally, there are different trends that the county is facing, including the need to provide a redevelopment focus for the plan. Currently, the county is pretty much built out, so how do the policies reflect the need to address redevelopment within the county? We need to look at what are the different demographic trends that are moving forward in the county and making sure the policies reflect those. As a coastal community, we also need to address sea level rise and different issues in that vein. And again, you'll see this interrelationship issue as a theme throughout this presentation to make sure it's clear how policies that address one topic also interrelate with another, whether it be land use and transportation or economics and so on and so forth. So in 2018, we completed the first two phases of this project. We completed policy consolidation, drafted guiding principles, and brought those out to the community, which will lead us into providing in-depth revisions to the plan. So again, policy consolidation was that process by which we looked at our existing plan today, and we wanted to make sure that the policies that were there, again, it's a pretty large document, over 1,100 policies, was clear and easy to implement. And so the result of this process brought us down to actually 300 policies. So we didn't change any of the meaning or intent of what's in the plan today, but how this happened, what we noticed is that a lot of things may have been categorized inappropriately. So things that were in fact called policies were more strategic action items. So they were strategies, not necessarily policies. And while there is reason at times to include action items and strategies within this policy document, as we move forward, we need to understand, is all of this language appropriate for the comprehensive plan versus being part of either a regulatory document and or just part of departments' different action plans. The second part of the process was that of guiding principles that we brought to the public in 2018 to get their support or understand if they did support these. So we had drafted 8 guiding principles. Currently, the plan today has 47 governing principles. And while there's a lot of good information and support in those governing principles, we wanted to streamline them to make sure that it was focused and direct and it really reflected what is the overall vision for the county. And we were able to create 8 guiding principles that still support what is stated today. We brought those to the community through a video we created to explain our process. We held open houses throughout the county. We held an online survey and got good feedback in that, showing support for the guiding principles. We created a Plan Pinellas webpage that talks about the entirety of what this process will be. We put together a document of intent and purpose for the guiding principles that explains what each of them are, whether it be the support for multimodal transportation or housing options or protecting our natural resources, creating healthy communities, and so forth. This webpage goes into each one of those and explains what those are. So moving forward is the in-depth revision, the evaluation of what we have today, and identifying what might need to change, what's missing, what's no longer relevant, and so forth. So we'll be working with internal departments. We'll have a continued public outreach process as this moves forward. So what are we trying to achieve? Ultimately, the outcome would be a streamlined, simplified, modernized, comprehensive plan. We would restructure it to, again, show the interrelationship between different policies, and we'd want it to primarily be a web-based plan. So again, it would be focused. We have it to these 8 primary guiding principles that all of the subsequent policies would need to align with. We want the language to be plain and direct, not only for the sake of the implementing departments within the county, but anyone in the community could pick up the document and understand what is it trying to achieve, what's the reason for this policy. Also, again, as I mentioned, it's important that this as a policy document does not necessarily include regulatory language. We want to make sure that language is brought out and put into the correct document, whether it be the Land Development Code or what have you. And we also want to restructure it, and so we have, I think the process as we evaluate the policies will really dictate what this ends up looking like. But again, showing how land use and transportation and housing and economics, you can't look at one without considering the other. So we're referring to that interrelationship as quality communities. How do we build quality communities? So we would have policies in that section that show how a single policy can tackle more than one of those items at the same time. Similarly, we would have something for a conservation and resiliency section and so on and so forth. We would cover all the same topics, but how we organize them and reflect that interrelationship is important.
For the public, could you translate what FLU is?
Sure, I apologize. It's future land use. So it really identifies where land uses are permitted and the densities and so on and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
So again, we also think it's pretty important to modernize the document and have it primarily be web-based. Currently, how people can view the comprehensive plan are through static PDFs. So they can open up a PDF, read through our document, but again, they might not understand how different policies across different elements might relate to that specific section. So we think by having an interactive web page or website itself that really displays the comprehensive plan will allow us that opportunity to make it more apparent how things relate and give some background data associated with the different policies. Of course, PDFs would still be available to the public, but we think this webpage would be important. So moving forward, we've gone through the policy consolidation, which sets up a clear understanding of what we have today. We confirmed with the public that the guiding principles represents the vision that they want. So now we will be kicking off our work with the departments countywide and making sure we understand what the long-term needs for each of the departments are, that the policies reflect those needs. We'll evaluate what's there today, what needs to remain, what might need to change or be removed, and what policies may be missing that would support their future activities and programs. And so as we move forward, we will be coming back to the board and provide updates. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burton.
Well, and where this really matters is yesterday I was meeting with Fort Pinellas and PSTA, and we're making a lot of decisions on how we invest to redevelop our communities and where we make those investments strategically. Bringing these pieces together to where we can understand a relationship between investing in housing, investing in transportation, and what that will bring us in the future, and the return on that investment is key. So those elements in that picture you had, the graph you had, talking about transportation, housing, economic development, and those things, understanding how they relate and how we can use our governmental processes and policies to drive some of that change, which is within your own strategic plan, is critical. And so that'll be a key piece of bringing this all together to where we can see, the various aspects and how to align them.
I agree, and I think it's amazing that in the planning to stay, we had 1,134 policies. I don't know how any human being keeps track of that many policies. But then moving towards having 846 strategies, that seems daunting as well. So we applaud you and thank you all for the hard work. And are there any questions from anyone?
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Great. Mr. Burton, Young Rainey Star Center.
The last item we have is Paul Sacco will come forward to talk about the Star Center and the staff recommendation on moving forward.
And once again, Paul's wearing those, I'm going to call them quadruple hats at this point.
Mostly falls under real estate and I guess subject matter expert. Mike Meidell's here also to speak to any kind of economic development questions or slants that you may have about the facility. Really, this is an update, but we are asking a little bit, or we are asking for board direction on where to go from here. So we can really continue to manage and redevelop or attempt to sell again, and we'll step through these. Just a reminder that the Economic Development Authority owns the facility. The board sits as the Economic Development Authority when you have any kind of decisions that need to be made. And then real estate management actually provides your property management in the form of leases, maintenance and operations that are on site. So for those that are not familiar with the site, it's located at the northwest corner of Belcher and Bryan-Derry Road. It's a 96-acre site. It primarily operates as a technology park. Raytheon is the anchor tenant, which is pretty much in the main building, which is closest to the front of the photo that's there. The outline in red is your 96-acre perimeter. Those areas outlined in yellow are those areas that would be immediately ready for development. The school can easily be brought down, so we say development. I don't want to say redevelopment. So what was the board's decision to sell? And it's happened in late FY15. At the time, the Star Center has always been an economic development project. It's kind of like a BRAC closure, but for the area of the U.S. Department of Energy that provided this facility to, at that time, the Pinellas County Industry Council, which later became the Economic Development Department. The center's been operating in the black since that time. There's been no general fund dollars that have gone into that facility. It was put back onto the tax roll where it wasn't when it was a federal facility. And the number of employees that were working there at the time actually exceeded the number of employees that were there when the Department of Energy announced closure of the facility. So on many different fronts from an economic development standpoint, the project was considered to be a success. And the facility was pretty much a paperless transaction, meaning that it came to, we'll say the county or the Economic Development Authority for really no money. I mean, it was sold at a premium figure, I think, of $2 million. And then the Department of Energy leased that facility back for a couple of years as it went through its closure, which actually exceeded what the sale price was. So really, when you're looking at the sale of the facility, you'd be walking away with all proceeds as profit for the facility. The other thing is, at the time when this was before the board, there was a great number of CIP projects that were coming due, I think to the neighborhood of like $8 million over the next 6 years. So it wasn't that the Star Center couldn't afford to take those on. It was just, should we take those on, or could we reinvest the sale proceeds for other economic development projects at the time? And that was really the direction of the board, was to try to give that a go and see if we can make that happen. So since that time, in FY16 and again in 18, real estate management along with economic development and the purchasing department work closely together to go out for what we call 2 requests for negotiations, which is the type of procurement process that is used for the Economic Development Authority. It allows us to find not necessarily just the most that's being offered for the facility in the way of financial, but it's looking for the best group to come in and run that facility as a continued economic development project. I'm sure you can all agree to bring somebody in that would be just interested in flipping the property or not being a long-term landlord and driving away your anchor tenant or other tenants that are there at the facility would be really detrimental to what we've been trying to do with the success of the project and having that continue with the number of folks that are actually there. Reminded that, well, I'll get to that in the next slide. So the first submittal that was received, we actually got, or the first procurement that was put in place, we received 2 submittals. One was for the Industrial Realty Group, IRG, and the other was Harrop Properties. Now, Harrop Properties does have a great interest in the property in that they have had several opportunities to develop land on the north side of the property through land leases, and then they've built many buildings. Industrial Realty Group came to us from California, and this is kind of in their portfolio to take what we consider to be environmentally stressed facilities and take them on in their portfolio and be kind of a long-term holder of those facilities and used to working in those type of facilities. The board agreed that we would go ahead and try to negotiate with IRG. It was a very long, protracted process. We went through our surveys, we went through the appraisals, we went through the environmental. It really got down to the language that was in the land leases with our third parties, that IRG did not feel that the protection was there that they would require to go forth and get additional lending for them to do improvements into the property. The legal team, along with our team, didn't see it that way, but it's their due diligence, and in the end, they decided they were going to walk away. They provided one last effort where the cash value was going to be a cash deal, was a little over $10 million. They offered to pay $5 million now, and the balance of the monies, if and when they can get the land leases to a state that would make them happy. We didn't know how long that would take. At the time when we polled those that were holding those land leases, they had no interest in renegotiating on any of them. So we didn't feel comfortable in entering that kind of contract. So we allowed that deal to lapse, and that was the end of that procurement cycle. In FY18, in the heels of that, I mean, it was, like I said, protracted. We went right back out and tried to be more open as far as what we would be willing to accept from a financial solicitation or made on that property, and we received 3 submittals. These were very much varied. We got another one from Harrop Properties. This one really didn't match with what we were doing. They wanted to give us, I think, $6 million for the properties to the north side where the land leases are, and they wanted to wait until Raytheon was out of the main building and give us $4 million at that point. Or if they wanted to take that, or we wanted them to take that building on immediately, I think they were going to give us a little over $1 million. So again, the income approach for that property we know is in excess of $10 million. You know, we've had appraisals to that effect, and we just didn't see that being a good deal for us. We had another submittal, all they wanted from, I think it was Clearview Tower, that wanted to just buy the cell tower portion of the property for $1 million, which is in the dead center of the property. And to us, that's really just a free moneymaker. I mean, we get money on, you know, those that are leasing space on the towers at almost, you know, no operational impact to us. Didn't see the interest and the need to do that. And then the last submittal that we received was actually from the Bel Air group, the developer group, the same group that's actually building our South County Service Center for us. As you know, the cost to complete that facility is about $10 million. They were offering to do a land swap with us to give us that building. In return, we would give them the Star Center property and an additional $3 million, which, again, we didn't see that worked in our favor. So we ended that procurement selection. So here we are today. And I wanted to give you a little bit more information before we
Sounds
get...
like creative financing.
Yep.
I got some proposals if we're taking those kind of offers.
Yeah. So I just want to give you a little bit about current state. So right now we're at 81% occupancy for the facility. That's pretty much a break-even point for us at the Star Center. In its heyday, when it was running as good as it could, we were pushing that number to 95, 96%. That's not realistic. We think that number should probably be 91, 92%. It's kind of what we see in the marketplace, and it's something that we think is sustainable for the property. There's approximately 1,500 employees working at the property. $578,000 in ad valorem taxes come to the county. The economic impact just on the first level of The tenants that are there and their employees and the contracts they generate exceed over $100 million. It's a big economic generator for the county. The facility continues to operate in the back. Our reserves are at $3.4 million, which are really high, and I'll explain that in a bit. Staffing, right now, county staffing in real estate is about 6. We have been really holding the line on not replacing through attrition and only replacing those that are absolutely critical to the operation because we didn't know where we were going to be and continuing whether to sell or not. We didn't want to have those additional employees coming back to us, or a larger number of employees coming back to us if the facility was kind of sold at that point. The tenant level of service I would call fair to satisfactory. In the past, that has been very good to good. And again, it's just because we've reduced our level of tenancy. We've moved forward with our CIP projects as though we still are going to own or continue to own, but only in those areas where we are keeping the facility dry, protecting the tenants, and also keeping them air conditioned. We pushed the larger CIP projects. We've kicked the can down the road probably as far as we can go. We have a lot of electrical infrastructure that needs to be replaced. We've seen evidence of that when we just went through our shutdown in December. And there's some large CIP stuff that we just need to deal with if we're going to continue to hold or for a period of time. So I had staff put together a pro forma. We do this every year with our budget, but I wanted them to go back and revisit because we're kind of in between the budget years. So we took a summary, which is going across the top of the page, and just asked them to do a little bit of a line graph. So the blue line represents the revenue that's coming in, and the red line is your operating expenses. So you can see our gap is good and our gap is healthy. The green line represents our CIP costs, and you can see that kind of takes a dip over the years. And then our cash flow, which I said is at $3.4 million now. As we get out to FY22, that dips down to $1 million. And again, this pro forma is based on what we know our CIP projects are today and going out 6 years, including those projects that have been kicked down the road. And that we're coming back with the staffing that we know we need to operate the facility, and then the occupancy that we know that we can increase by doing marketing, which we've really held back from. So those 3 points are positive and real, and in this pro forma, we find that it's real and really down the line. It's not too conservative and it's not too, optimistic. We're really basing this on what we know the realities are of operating this facility for almost 20 years. That's been 20, that's a long time. Actually, I just thought about that. Again, good data, I think, for you to kind of understand where we are today and what the future looks like in 6 years, out. So options to consider. We can place this back out on the market again. If we were to do that, I want to remind you that the original appraisal that was done was at a market appraisal that was like 18 or 19 million. We know that that's not the right approach that can be used for this property. It needs to be an income approach. Everything that we received back in the 2 prior solicitations have been on an income basis, and that number's been a little bit north of $10 million. And it's the way that we operate. I know Commissioner Seals talked about in the past about Raytheon getting a sweetheart deal and whatnot. I can circle back to that, but over the time that they've been there, that sweetheart deal has got them to where they're probably about $1.25 under the market for this type of space. But I'll tell you that the Star Center has some competitive disadvantages. We don't have the high base space that's required out there. Usually firms coming in for this type of industrial space are looking for something that's, in excess of 30 feet. We're probably 22 or 23 feet. We don't have the type of docking and receiving doors and docks in the back. And then on the flip side, we look at what Raytheon brings to the facility. They've invested almost $10 million over the time that they've been there, including LED lighting for the facilities and other improvements that they're making that would be left if they were to leave. They've also paid for $2 million a year in security for their area, which is really most of our site. So we see benefits. That dollar really isn't, I don't think, out of market when I consider what Raytheon is bringing to the table. We've also had 2 tenants that signed on with the Star Center just to support them, no matter what they're paying, because they're just an attractor for things that are happening at the center as well as in the community. So just to come back, income approach would be what would be needed as we continue on if we wanted to put this out on the street. Recommend hiring a commercial broker. I'll tell you, Mike and his staff, and getting the word out the first 2 times, we reached a lot of people and a lot of firms that are out there. But I think we could possibly see a different benefit if we wanted to consider a commercial broker. So I think we should at least look at that opportunity if it's something that we want to go out and do. And certainly extend just that advertisement period and probably leave it open-ended or give it a very long time if that's really where the board wants to go, instead of putting a finality on it of 90 days, 120 days, 180 days. And we can work through that since it's a negotiated type solicitation that's being made, which we can do for the Economic Development Authority properties. On the flip side, we can continue to manage and redevelop this property. The big difference is in 15, we had no penny for, we had no economic development funds available. We know that through just the property management of the facility, we can keep it in the black. But we know also with the Star Center CIP and maybe some of the penny for economic development funds, we can increase our densities on the site. We can attract new businesses, build new buildings. Those types of funds wouldn't be used for the maintenance and operation replacements of the facility. We can do that as Star Center funds. But if we wanted to look at developing the northeast corner, meaning that if we want to develop it, instead of just leasing land and let someone else come in and develop it, those opportunities exist, and there's something that we can all talk through. And in the end, it would be that joint committee that looks at the ED projects, and the Star Center would have to stack up just like the other projects that come before you. It may be that leasing this land is the best thing, and it keeps it in the same wheelhouse of what we dealt with before. I'll tell you, there's probably 2 or 3 buildings that are in the middle of the property that aren't used right. It would take a lot to demolish them because they're built really, really tough, but it would open up property for us to increase our densities. And we know that from a surface water standpoint, we're 100% built with our infrastructure to support what's there. So there's nothing new. If we wanted to bring in new developers or whatnot, all that infrastructure is already in place. We could be shovel ready to do those things, either to develop what's on what I call the cleared brownfield areas, or to redevelop the areas that these buildings can be brought down. We can increase the densities more if we wanted to put a parking structure on the facility. We could actually build on another large parking lot that's already there. So there's a lot of redevelopment opportunities at the Star Center if we wanted to take that and move that forward. So I just wanted to let you know, give you some information. If you want to sell, here's where we're at. If you want to hold and redevelop, there's options associated with that too. And I think that was it from that standpoint. So questions?
Madam Chair, I'd like to go first. Thank you for the information, Paul, especially on Raytheon. I think I didn't realize how much they had invested in the actual facility, so that is excellent information. As all of you all may remember, and Commissioner Peters wasn't here, but I never wanted to sell this, and I really think we have, rather than going out and purchasing additional property, with the penny for funds, we have land and we have great possibilities here, and I think we should explore what that plan could be. It sounds like your staff has already done some work in that regard, and I think that there would be great excitement by the real estate staff of this opportunity to do some economic development projects. So that being said, Commissioner Long.
Yes, thank you for that presentation, Paul. I have 3 questions, actually, if that's all right. Do we have the ability to build up on that building?
On the main building?
Yeah.
No, that building's not constructed with the footers necessarily to continue on top. So.
Okay. And then secondly, I'd be curious if you know what the environmental issues are and whether or not they have a plume there like they had at the other facility over on 22nd Avenue, I think it was, by the Tyrone Mall.
Yes. So yes, the property does have an environmental issue. It's groundwater contamination from chemicals that were buried in the 50s and 60s. Not much different than manufacturing facilities around the country. There is a source contamination that's actually on the northwest corner of that main building that the Department of Energy cannot get to as long as that building is standing. The other areas on site that had environmental contamination, they were able to dig down and remove those sources. So we have those sources removed and deed restrictions on those areas that we're able to build, redevelop. We just can't have a residential component or a school component on those areas of the property anymore.
But they do have a school there, don't they?
Correct, but it's not where the contamination was. And the school is fallow. It hasn't been used in probably a decade.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a it's a portable building. I mean, a weekend and a bulldozer, and that could be gone. That's why I'm saying it's ready for immediate development. But the plume extends from under that main building. It actually heads east and actually heads southwest. And the Department of Energy is responsible for that plume that came with the sale of the facility, and they've done all that they can. They continue to actually inject, it's called in situ treatment, where they actually put microorganisms in the ground that actually chew on the contaminants there, but it takes a long time for that to happen, and it breaks them down into lesser, I call them daughter chemicals, and over time that'll happen, but that could take decades. But unless they can get under that building, they're not going to be able to remove that source. But there's no issue with contamination. There's no path as far as to people that are working there on site because it's capped with that building. So it's safe. I mean, and like I said, the Department of Energy will continue to do what they can. They're always out there monitoring. I think they do that quarterly or maybe semi-annually now. We recognize that it's there, and as long as we're not digging in that area, then everything is fine.
All right, thank you.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Akers?
Yeah, thank you for the update, Paul. The idea of getting a broker, a commercial broker, or at least going out and getting some broker opinions, I think is a good idea. Full disclosure, I am a commercial broker, so I understand the industry, and I certainly understand the degree of professionalism that they have with regards to properties like this. At the same time, with the development opportunities that are here that we're talking about, there are developers who do development for fee as well, so that they find the tenant, they do the development, and it reverts to us as the owner, clearly.
Yes.
And I think that's something that we also should look at. And the ultimate thing here is to try to find out what that mid-term value or long-term value of that property, so that we know whether we're giving it away at $10 million because around the corner it might have a $22 million value.
Understood.
And then we have people saying, well, there goes government, giving it away and losing out on opportunities. So to that end, some of our short-term, most of those leases that are on site now, is that they surround the main tenant that's there? And what is the term of those leases? Are we talking 2-3 years? Are we talking 8 to 10 years? Where are we on the?
Well, your anchor tenant has multiple 5-year renewals because of the monies that they've invested. Okay. The balance of tenants in the main building and the other buildings that we own are typically 5 years or less, and they may have 1 or 2 year, 1 year extensions or whatnot. The ground leases, they're the long-term leases that we have because buildings have been placed on those properties. And they're probably, I'm guessing 40, 45 years left on some of those leases.
Owned by individual companies that on top of our land?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, so we're getting the ground lease monies in for that property, but they maintain and operate those buildings. We don't have any
So part of our problem then is that those renewal leases that are what I would, for a tenant this size, what I consider short. 5-year leases are short.
Mm-hmm.
Has there been any discussion about extending those leases so that we have real value for people who might be looking at buying?
And I understand where you're going with this, sir, but those smaller leases are generally for our smaller tenants.
Mm-hmm.
10,000 square feet less.
I was thinking more of the big tenant that we have.
The large tenant we have, they don't want anything more than a 5-year lease with the 5-year renewals. We've, even IRG, when they were looking at this, we're trying to talk them into getting into a 10 or 20-year lease. Yeah. And based on, I think, the contractual requirements of a Department of Defense contractor, they don't want that liability any longer than they need. So it's that balance that we're having to work with.
What kind of development do we have on those vacant pieces of land? What kind of development abilities are there? How much land is there? How much building could be on there?
So the northeast corner of the property, back to that, which is the kind of Nebraska-looking piece, that is about, minus the surface water pond that's there, is about 4.5 acres. Okay, and then the piece to the south of that, where the school is and the parking lot, that's about 2 acres, 2.5 acres, I think. So, and from a height restriction standpoint, I think it was Commissioner Long was asking, it's an M1 zoning, which I believe we can build up to like 40 or 45 feet. Now, you might be able to get a variance for that because we're not that close to the airport, but that's what I understand the normal build is for that as far as elevation goes.
Yeah, because that would be, those two pieces there outside of the rest of the industrial property would be, I mean, I would, office space would be attractive. Again,
Right.
there's those that are working that market that would know better, but I do think there are some long-term benefits here because of what you're talking about. We're kind of restricted by a lot of high-value increases, it seems like, and so certainly I don't want to be in the development business, but certainly consider having somebody come in and do it for us and leaving it to us, obviously.
Correct.
But, yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Gerard, and then I'll continue. Did you have to, I thought I saw
Yeah,
your
I
hand
did.
up.
Yeah,
Yes.
you did. Well, I guess I agree with you that there's not any urgency to be selling this right now if it's in the black, and it'll stay in the black at least for a few years. I'm wondering, though, said we might be able to use penny funds on there, but if we own the land already and all the infrastructure is there, what would we use penny funds for?
The actual, the actual development of the building, we could actually build the building where
We could?
the EDA couldn't do that with the funds that we have in the facility. But those opportunities, again, would have to come through your committee, and those projects would have to stack up against the other projects that are being put before them.
So we could build a building and lease it then? We have to continue to own it.
Right.
Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And some of these questions have got there, and when we did decide to sell it, or at least put it out, for the numbers that we were looking at were much higher than what came back. And we were looking at the cost avoidance of these capital costs that you see coming down the road. But as far as, like, when we talk about 96 acres, it's really not 96 acres when you talk about the Raytheon building, and that we couldn't really do the kind of development that I think some of us would envision on this beautiful 96 acres with that building there. So we're kind of in a chicken and egg with that building. Right? And so I guess that's the question of how long and how valuable is the Raytheon lease and the money coming there before you make some kind of big investment in that property. Because otherwise you don't really have that kind of...
Correct. Well, I think Raytheon has, if they took all their renewals, they probably have 25 to 30 years left on the ability to continue leasing that property. And given their investment that they made, it would have to be a very sweet deal to move them out of that building into something else while you're tearing that building down and building something back. I mean, just working with them, I would tell you, it would have to be a very attractive thing. IRG tried to do some of those things, and they weren't successful in doing that either.
And do you have any idea, maybe we can get someone from DEP to get us this information, how long they still have on their pump and treat plan at the Azalea site? Do you have any idea on that?
That I do not know, sir.
What might be helpful to the board is a summation of the leases that we have and what we're receiving and maybe the capital that they've invested, just like you mentioned today with Raytheon.
We'll get you a rent roll for that.
So
well, in a time, if we're committed to Raytheon for 20 years, then that changes our discussion dramatically.
Right, right. Commissioner Peters or Commissioner Welch?
I agree with everything that's been said. I remember you kind of predicted this, but the times have changed, the environment has changed, the market has changed. Love the graph that shows everything in surplus going out. And I had to step out for a minute, but the $82.5 million off the top for the penny, those were funds back in 2015 that obviously we didn't know the outcome of the next penny vote, but we can use that 82.5 in a flexible way?
For the way I understand it from Mike, he may be able to help, but the way I understand it would have to be for projects that would increase economic development to that property. I don't see that we would be able to use that to replace roofs or air conditioning and things of those nature.
Okay, but for much of the funds that we were looking at using from the sale of this business, you now can use those penny funds?
Yes.
Okay. So,
I'm sorry.
Just
thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner.
Yeah, just, and if you could, perhaps maybe we could start to get a list of commercial brokers that specialize in this. There's only a few that would be really qualified to take this, or give us some opinions first of all, and then if we decided to do something with it, to take it, I would say national or international on trying to sell this. But also maybe to get a sense of maybe some developers out there that would do, development on contract. They would build it, they'd find the tenant, they'd build it, they take the risk, they would be our property. Would make the same return, but it's not what we do.
Right.
So maybe get a few that are out there that might be interested in that, or that are doing it without going out for an RFP yet. Be nice to know.
Okay.
Well, is there consensus that we try to move forward with keeping the property?
Yes.
I think we're still doing some due diligence here now, I think, right? I mean, aren't we?
I think we'll continue to do due
Yeah.
diligence, but I mean, I would rather the staff have some direction as to the future development potential and maybe working in that regards.
Yeah, I mean, the direction that we would get would be helpful in that we know we need to replace some of the members of the staff that are there. I mean, the level of service, we have seen a dip in that area, and that's certainly something that we don't want to see. Like I said, we know where we're at with the CIP. We'll continue to, to be frugal with those things, but we are coming up to those things where we can't continue to kick the can down the road. And, I didn't mention this, but staff's recommendation would be to hold this for, probably 3 years and then come back and reevaluate then. 3 to 5.
Okay.
I would be.
And I think that's probably wise, particularly, again, I think we thought we were going to get about 15 million for it plus, and Commissioner Eggers, and then I'd like to ask Mike Mydell to come up and give us a little update on the business incubator grant or requests that we've made to the state as well as to the feds.
Yeah, you just said a minute ago about development potential of the property, and I think that's what we should be doing in that 2-3 year, whatever we're talking about.
Absolutely.
And I definitely think that includes getting some professional opinions about this property, what we would, how it would, because those broker opinions are very valuable if you get the right people giving it to us. And that would include some development potential of those two pieces, whether it be more manufacturing or office components.
Right.
Because, those vacancies are really low now, so.
Yeah, I'll tell you, we have 2 developers that are knocking at the door wanting to build on this property, but again, that may not be the right.
And obviously you'll
we
have
need to
to
evaluate these things. What's that?
I'm sorry, Paul. Obviously, you'll have to go to developers that didn't submit a bid for this property.
It'll be open and fair.
Okay. Anything further before Mike comes up? I thought, wow.
Thank you very much for your time and direction.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And since you're here, and I know we
Certainly.
were asking, we were looking at doing something in St. Petersburg and just didn't know the status and planning on using the proceeds for this possibly.
Certainly.
And so,
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, it's a good segue. I'm Mike Mydell, Economic Development Director for Pinellas County. And we have a grant request in with the Economic Development Administration of the U.S. government. And we were down to the very wire when the government shut down. And so we just got a call back from a representative in Atlanta, and they are sending us a letter of continuation or whatever. What they are asking is additional information to verify our commitment to the project, some assurances from the city and so on. We haven't seen the details of that. We expect a phone call from Greg any day, and we will get on the conference call and go through each of those items. But his initial indications, he still hasn't seen the letter yet. It's coming from Washington, D.C. But he knows that we had a limited pot of money and we had a lot of people asking for it. And it's looking like the amount we're looking at is about 7 million instead of the 9 million we asked for. So now originally when we asked for the 9, we were asking for a $3 million match from the Board of County Commissioners. We had your agreement on that, but now it looks like we need an additional 2 million. Now we don't know the details of that yet, and we don't know what other requirements they're going to put on us. But generally, the federal government is a tough negotiator as far as the wanting to retain value in the event anything goes wrong. So, but at this point, the city of St. Pete, unlike some other projects we've done with them in the past, is willing to actually provide us with the free and clear ownership of the property. And in the past, like the SRI building at the port, we own half the building, but they still own the land and the other half of the building. So it is beneficial to us there where we would actually own the land the building sits on, and we would own the property at the time the project was complete. It still has to be on that property. We can't change the location. Okay. So it's 11th Avenue South at 4th Street. Which is good because that is in the heart of the Innovation District. It is on the very edge of an opportunity zone, so we do have opportunities to get private sector investment there potentially, particularly probably more on the sponsorship and the equipping of the facility afterwards. I think it's tough to bring them in as partners on the front end. But we will know more in a matter of days, and I'd be glad to brief you all on that then.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for the update.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Commissioner Justice.
Thank you. I just couldn't remember, did we, I know we had submitted the legislative request in our package every year, but did we actually at any point appropriate our matching funds?
No.
Okay, that's what I.
No, we have not.
Just wanted to make sure my memory was.
And I think once we know the outcome of the federal, we'll probably need to have a discussion about whether, and I don't know, Mike, whether, we promised a certain size building or if based on less money from the federal government, we could downsize and or go find other partners, such as maybe All Children's, or John Hopkins. Okay, thank you very much. I know we are going to go into the lunch hour, but I'd like to take the citizens to be heard and then take a short lunch break. Or we can power through and go through the rest of the county commission agenda. So. But let's start with the citizens to be heard and then see where you are at that point.
Can I ask that we could please turn the air conditioner off? It is so cold in here.
It is pretty cold. Okay, first one is Robert Remley. Is Robert here? Yes, come on up. And remember, everyone, we ask that you speak to the subject during the 3 minutes allotted. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, the meter's running too.
I know.
I put some bullets here. There's only 8 of them, so I should be able to get through them real quick. But this relates to the channeling of military veterans and first responders into high manufacturing positions. The components that I'll just read the items real quick. The first responders and military vets are disciplined leaders, and we all know that, with high-tech training and experience. Our economy is in need of high-qualified, high-wage manufacturing personnel, another factor. I've talked to former employees of the STAR Center, well, when it was a DOE thing, and they are engineers, technical people, scientists that are interested in supplying training, direction for these first responders and military. One of the things, this is a grassroots thing that I'm looking at. I have been for 2 years. First responders, which is, your military, they have some social problems. Some stats that I came up with is just locally where there's suicides. And for the military, 22 military people commit suicide, per day. I know myself when I got out of the military, I went, used the VA, the education. Did a lot of different things, but what I found was very important was the type of training that the military had, which is like performance-based training, on-the-job training. The factor that we have here is with the people, the former employees at the plant that I surveyed, there's at least 10 people that are interested in the training aspect of these people. So we have that together, and we have, because of manufacturing, the deficiency in our economy that we have that, we're trying to put that together. But like I said, this is grassroots. This is not dealing with, the chief of police or, the sheriff and stuff like that. These are the people that are in need. And I do admit a lot of the people that I met is at taverns. So, but like I said, this is a 2-year thing. So the final thing that I have to say is, once again, it's just awareness to the board, and thank you for your time, to saying that this is what we're working now. To some degree, we know that. I'm done.
If you'd like to share a copy of your comments by email or by scanning it, I'll be happy to share it with the rest of the board.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Bye.
Kitty Rosson? Subject is affordable housing. Hi.
Hi. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. What I'm going to do basically is read a summary of the letter that we sent to Mr. Burton at the end of day yesterday, and there will be copies available for all of you as well. I want to thank Mr. Burton for meeting with FAST clergy and board members yesterday. Today we are here to express our gratitude and also to follow up on our conversation. Your staff asked us if we would be satisfied if the county passes a resolution instead of an ordinance. An ordinance is our preference because we know that it is stronger than a resolution. If you feel that it is important that this be a resolution rather than an ordinance, then we ask you also include the 3 commitments of the commissioners at our FAST action in the county's comprehensive plan to ensure that each year they provide a direct guide to the county staff. Also, your staff asked if we would be comfortable including money spent on infrastructure for affordable housing as part of the 4.15%. Our answer is that we do not want infrastructure expenditures counted as part of the 4.15% for affordable housing. The 4.15% should be spent to acquire property, structures, and properties, and to be used for affordable housing. We think that the other 95.85% of penny for Pinellas should be used for infrastructure improvements. We've been assured by numerous housing staff that the housing needs in Pinellas are so great that you will have no trouble spending upwards of $100 million for acquiring land for affordable housing if that money is made available. Housing staff have also shown that there are numerous other pots of money that can be paired with penny funds to help developers pay for rehabbing or building our properties acquired with penny funding. Lastly, we are asking you to personally clarify what role Catherine Driver, as head of the Housing Finance Authority, will pay in spending the 4.15% for affordable housing. At this point, she is the only staff person in the county that we know of who has a strong track record of knowing how to effectively spend penny for Pinellas money for affordable housing. Our fear is that the review committee could devolve into staff people fighting over funding for projects in their own communities, and we could lose her expertise in putting together high-quality projects that benefit our whole county. We look forward to hearing back from you, Mr. Burton, later this week or early next week with a new draft ordinance for our review. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy, and help me with your last name.
Filippelli.
Filippelli. That's what I was going to say, but I didn't want to say it wrong.
Yeah, you did very well. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm Kathy Filippelli from St. Matthew's Catholic Church and also on FAST. Yesterday, FAST was able to meet with Mr. Burton, and we were very excited and encouraged by starting this relationship to work with you. We appreciate that you took the time to meet with us yesterday. We are particularly heartened that Mr. Burton's commitment was to quickly address the problems with the latest draft of Penny for Pinellas regarding the Affordable Housing Ordinance to express the intent of the county commissioners. We are hopeful that we can have an ordinance ready for the county commissioners to review and approve at maybe the second meeting in February. We are expecting the income guidelines committed by the county commissioners at our Nehemiah action last year to be finally put in the ordinance, as it is in line with the county's current practices regarding the spending of Penny for Pinellas housing funds. Additionally, what was committed at the FAST action provides opportunities to create the mixed income housing for a variety of income levels, and it gives the county some flexibility to fund other projects. Additionally, we are expecting the goal of the county commission to spend 10% of the penny money every year to be reinstated and reinserted rather in the ordinance. Based on the history of what happened with affordable housing penny money in the last cycle, it's very important to the community to understand that everyone is committed to trying to spend the affordable housing money each year. The current draft of the ordinance does include the most important part, which is it's the county's goal to allocate at least 4.15% of the said 8.3% of net proceeds to affordable housing. It is important that the ordinance be written in such a way to provide guidance to the whole review committee that's being formed, as well as to present this guidance to present and future members of the county commission. We think it is great that the ordinance instructs the county's 3 review board representatives to follow these guidelines, and we want to make sure that the ordinance also informs the whole research committee of the county commission's goals. We have a letter that Bob is going to bring up and present to each of you. Mr. Burton, this is your copy. This is your seal.
Thank you.
So that way, we've been here quite a bit. Bob, you had extra copies to give out. It's been a long morning, and so we wanted you to have it in writing of what both Kitty and I had said to you. So thank you for hearing us yesterday, allowing us to be with you today, and continue to work for affordable housing here in Pinellas County.
All right, thank you. Bob Meehan. Good morning, or afternoon, rather.
Good afternoon. I'm Bob Meehan, and I'm a member of FAST. Yesterday, we met with Administrator Burton. Mr. Burton shared with us the county's vision and priority commitment to affordable housing. We were pleased to learn that the county is taking a comprehensive approach to planning for affordable housing, especially the transportation component, which is absolutely vital. We in turn shared our concern that your intention to dedicate at least 4.15% of the proceeds from the next round of Penny for Pinellas to affordable housing, that it be formalized in the form of an ordinance or resolution. We both committed to a rapid process to reach agreement on the wording and bring it to you for your review and approval. Let's proceed expeditiously to complete this so we can both move on to improving the lives of those in our community who are not as fortunate as most of us in this room. Thank you, and if I may, I have an updated version of the letter that you just received, along with copies for each member of the commission, and one for the staff attorney who's working with Mr. Burton, and one for the file.
Just take them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Cynthia Codling Malborough. Lives in Clearwater. Cynthia?
18 years in the code out there.
Morning, good afternoon.
Very long time. Cynthia Melbourne, nurse practitioner. Ferdinand Nightingale Hospital was here with you on the 8th to request what I need to my home to return and personal contents. 2216 Eldora Drive, because I'm ready to go, I'm tired. And it's cold out there for 18 years. Excuse my outfit, but this is what you've left me in. Community, political structure. That the police can't even ask why. Why you don't want her down there? The handcuff is on, and the gun in the face. 18 years. I can go through a list of what I've done for that 18 years, based on a course I took in USF and entwined environmental nursing in there, that I could turn it around. And with the grace of God, I'm still alive. So I came last week to show you I'm still alive, because on your papers, you couldn't find me. You don't know where I am. You don't know whether I'm dead or alive. It's in your courthouse. So I stood last week to show you I'm alive, and I came here from England, Her Majesty's Armed Forces, a personnel from the Middle East War, Desert Storm, when the Shah came here, and came here for a degree in the university to advance my nursing career. I'm ready to go quite a long time to deliver the messages to Her Majesties from the Middle East War. Let peace prevail on earth. And today I stand added on. So Winston Churchill, Stalin, and your FDR at Yatta. Let peace prevail on earth, Americans.
Thank you for being here, and I know
I'm
that our
ready
staff has been
to return
trying
to my
to
home
help you.
so I can step with England. Waited quite a long time ago. When you put me in the jail and put a handcuff on my head, and I gone in my face inside my house, it was only 3 days. In there to tell the girls in the Commonwealth from 2218 that I met when I got there. Mr. Clinton was in power then. Check your infrastructure. The girls are like animals coming down in your jail. I was shocked. Most Caucasian. I've never met a Chinese in there. Only the one I took out that you put a handcuff on her in the library. And thanks God I was there. But I've seen Indians or blacks. One black woman, 10 children. She borrowed money from Barnes Bank, was paid
Ma'am?
back. Barnes Bank went with $400.
Ma'am, your time is up.
I'm ready for my
Our
home in 2216 Eldora Drive, so I can
Our
get to
staff
bed.
has been trying to help you.
Thank you.
Daisy is here.
I
and
just
so-
need my home with my contents.
I
Not
understand,
a
but
small court. Our list is in the courthouse.
I would request that you work with our staff and see if we can help you resolve
18
this.
I've been in your jail about 6 times to take your children out of jail. It's felony. No one told them about it.
I
To
understand.
go back to work.
Okay, thank
I'm
you.
ready to go. Back to my,
David Ballard Geddes Jr. is up next.
ready to go back to my British,
Thank you for being here.
Her Majesty's Armed Forces. I'm ready to retire. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. David Ballard Geddes Jr. I live on Georgia Avenue in Palm Harbor. A levy underpinned on the county's ad valorem property tax lien is a water district levy. Article 3, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution states that treason against the United States shall consist only in the levying of war against them or in adhering to their enemies. When contrasting the water district levy underpinned on our ad valorem property tax lien as contrast with the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment, both the county and the water district have seen fit to levy against the Christian population while birthing water jurisdictions. The Due Process Clause of birthing water jurisdictions and the taking of liberty, property, and life, as based on the reclaimed water variance application, is to be levied against the Gentiles claimed as bounty in Section 4 of the 14th Amendment, when deduced, adhering to the fact that the enemy being held on the forefront in Article 3, Section 3, is the religion of Christianity. In hindsight, reading this Constitution from right to left, as equated, it becomes self-evident that the penmanship of this Constitution is in total disrespect of the establishment of Christianity as revealed in the reclaimed water variance application. The levy, underpinned on our property tax, implicates the usurpatuitous nature of both the county and the district, violating the First Amendment, revealing this Constitution to be defective in Federalist Paper number 20. In light of this Constitution, this Constitution is to be viewed as a heresy, seen as an invading force, seen as an actual invasion, as in actual wartime activities in time of peace in Article 1, Section 10, as in actual service in Article 2, Section 2, based on presentiment as in actual service in time of war in the Fifth Amendment, claiming Second Amendment right to bear arms using water, assuming water as its power among the earth as written in the Declaration of Independence, declaring to eat us out of our subsistence in the Declaration, aggregating, contaminating our water supply, using water as its weapon of choice, intent on controlling the will of man in Federalist Paper number 79. This board has chosen to constitutionally monger warfare, using water as a weapon of, as its weapon of choice, and it shall be charged as such. All stakeholdings held in and of the state are subjected. Thank you.
Lenore Faulkner.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Seal and your distinguished commission. Thank you for your service. I'm Lenore Faulkner from Madeira Beach. I've been a professional educator for 50 years, certified in biology, chemistry, math, science, health education, middle schools, and the gifted. I graduated from the University of Florida 50 years ago. I am deeply concerned about the children of Pinellas County. The ones in the 5 failing schools. It is sad that they won the Pulitzer Prize for that article. I feel sorry for the children at Johns Hopkins Hospital and the very sad children at Johns Hopkins Middle School. As a middle school teacher, this is very upsetting to me. I was asked by John Maroney to come in 2005, and I will be continuing to come because of him. I come because of my dad, too. He was a Hellcat fighter pilot in graduate school at the U.S. Naval Academy when I was born. He fought for public education, not for the corporate takeover of public education. I'm the voice of all poor children left behind. Since my last visit, our governor repealed the Common Core and embraced charter schools. The politician who was the author of HB 7069, which is very upsetting to me, became Florida's Secretary of Education. HB 7069 is at the end of a 200-page document made in 2017 stating that charter schools could use public education money. There are very little checks and balances on charter schools, just checks and allowances. I thank Commissioner Gerard for her diligent work on CareerSource and the Science Center. I have a 400-page document from the gentleman who, the gentleman from CareerSource. He was going to start a charter school in the science building. So I just thought you really need to be interested in charter schools in Pinellas County. Commissioner Long said I have to come up with solutions to what I say. So I'm asking you on the commission, you have a staff, please get a list of all the charter schools that were started in Pinellas County. Who are the people behind these things? They're usually not educators. How much was spent and when they closed and what we got for our investment. Thank you, Ms. Long, Ms. Gerard, and Commissioner Steele.
Mr. Pound.
Yes, Greg Pound. I'd like to bring to the issue here some things. This here is a Bible, and what comes out of the Bible is what's called the Constitution. This is how big your Constitution is and your Bill of Rights. No bigger than this. And this is what your court system is built on, your laws. Now, there's a couple of things that the white culture has taken out of this Constitution, and especially in the state of Florida. One is your right to a jury trial. You're supposed to have a right to a jury trial for anything over $20. And you can't even get a right to a jury trial over your children in the state of Florida. Your second right to protect you from the government is your right to own a gun. Now, they're going around with petitions this past week, people wanting you to sign a petition to take away people's rights to own guns. Now, I've seen this news article that says white Americans' births below replacement level in every state. Now, for 127 years, white people have been using guns, and the gun permits were for African Americans and Indians. Slaves and Indians had to get a right to own a gun. Now that the white population is depleted so low that the people of color now are coming and taking over, they want to take away their right now to be able to own guns so the white people can stay in power, rape, rob, use your children, come and indoctrinate them into perversion. This culture that we have in our public school system is filled with rampant perversion. You go watch that debate over this Catholic school thing in D.C. The black Hebrews and the Indian guy, Dave News, turned it and said it's now the Indian and the black Hebrews. You look at what the black Hebrews were preaching down there, preaching about Donald Trump and Giuliani kissing one another, and go look what they said on YouTube. They said nothing that wasn't truth. Everything they said, they wasn't racist. There's no racist. They're just speaking the truth, and they make them out to be racist. And so this is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with the culture. Now the white people have sold out the truth for money. And if the people of color do not take over this government, they are going to destroy the republic. They're selling out our country for money. They will do anything to anybody for money. They will kill their babies. They'll sodomize the children. They'll give you free sex changes. They are destroying America and what this country's been built on. This country's been built on this Bible right here. This is where your Constitution, your Bill of Rights come on, and they're traitors. Benjamin Franklin said, rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. And this is what you're dealing with. You're dealing now with tyrants. You got white people trying to hold on to power. If you knew these people and who they are, where they've been and what they've done, they're traitors to America and they're traitors to the people. And if people of color do not get together against them, you're not going to win. You got to get them out because their goal is they want to indoctrinate you to death, perversion, sodomy. They want to destroy your families, and they want to get you to get right in there with them. Do not do it. Thank you.
All right, what are the wishes of the board? Do you want to take, say, 20 minutes for a quick lunch break and then finish up the rest of the agenda? Or you want to continue through?
Hour.
All right. I think then we will move on to agenda item 25, appointment to the Pinellas County Historical Commission. Commissioner Long?
Yes, Madam Chair, I think you all have seen the resume of Tina Bukavalis, and she is incredibly qualified, certified, and has an just incredible desire to serve. So I recommend her appointment.
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Long, second by Commissioner Welch. Can we have the voting board, please?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I was just looking at the roster, and I found it interesting. I wasn't sure if we did this with other boards, that the Junior League of Clearwater has an appointment to this board.
Really? And I think, and I'm just remembering back in history, because it was before my time, believe it or not, because the Junior League had an integral role in developing Heritage Village. I think they were that had a position there because of that reason.
I knew you'd know.
Okay, voting board, please. Okay, unanimous approval. County Commission new business items. Does anybody have any new business? Okay, we'll move on to County Commission board reports and miscellaneous. I'll start with Commissioner Welch.
I will spare you, Madam Chair and colleagues. Again, just want to thank you for your support on the SBD program.
Again, thank you for your leadership.
Thank you all.
And for bringing it to our attention.
That's all I have.
Okay, Commissioner Peters.
I've just still been busy doing my listening tour, but I will tell you, you all asked me to call Jared Moskowitz about the FEMA reimbursements. He's now the new head of emergency management at the state level, and he said that the process they used before was antiquated and you had to wait for a 100% audit before they would start reimbursing. Well, he has changed the policies, and right now he's working on Michael, then they'll work on Matthew. They're going to wait until there's a 40% completion rate on the audit. Once the 40% is done, we'll receive 50% of our reimbursement, and as they complete the audit, we'll continue to get 10% at a time. He says that at this point, he expects we should start receiving reimbursements at the end of April. And I consider that pretty good news. So I would recommend we keep it on the legislative agenda so you keep it at the forefront. But his priorities right now are getting monies for Michael, and because Matthew was smaller, it's more manageable, and then he'll get onto the IRMA issues. So other than that, I've just been meeting with our groups, Terre Verde and Feather Sound and so forth, and I did take the time to observe a PIC team meeting, and I will tell you what Pinellas County is doing and what Lourdes is doing with the collaborative groups is amazing when it comes to mental health. The partnering and the connecting up to create a safety net with those that are suffering the most with mental health in the county is really it's really working well, and I'm proud of the work that they're doing. So thank you. That's all I've got.
That was a nice shout out and well deserved. Thank you. Commissioner Justice.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Only real committee that has met since then is I went to Tallahassee last week for a day for the Gulf Consortium. We're kind of into the process part of it and just kind of maintenance. We had a presentation from the Executive Director of the Restore Council from New Orleans. And if you've ever worked on a federal grant, you know there's a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross and boxes to check. And so that's kind of where we're in the process of. And we have a management firm that we oversee. So it's a lot of just kind of making sure that they're doing what they need to do and make sure that we're reporting to the feds what we need to do. And Andy Squires is kind of our lead staff person, making sure that from our perspective, we're meeting those requirements as well. Other than that, wanted to thank you and Mr. Burton and the staff for the strategic planning session last week at Brooker Creek. I thought that was a good day, time well spent, getting together and talking those issues. And then beyond that, just to welcome Mr. Dean again. Thank you.
Great. Commissioner Long?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. The Tampa Bay Regional Transit Authority met last up in Hernando County. That was pretty interesting. And subsequent to the meeting, I had an incredible visit and conversation with Secretary Gwynn from the Department of Transportation, who was really excited to share with me that the week before, our new governor had visited him in District 7, and that the priorities of the new governor, I think this is really important considering we're about to have our funding workshop on transportation, is that he wanted the transportation projects and initiatives to be flexible, to be focused on the urban areas of our state, which I was welcome news to me, and also to focus on transit solutions. So obviously that was music to my ears, and I look forward to our workshop that we're going to be having. The Executive Committee of PSTA met yesterday. Brad, Barry, and Whit met after that, so I'm kind of anxious to hear the update because During our executive committee meeting, we were very focused on our budget and the fact that we were at our cap, and we had an in-depth discussion about those 5 municipalities that are not part of PSTA but continue to receive the benefits of PSTA, and so we're really very much looking forward to that funding transportation workshop that we're going to have. I'll let Commissioner Eggers do the report on Forward Pinellas, and work continues on the Regional Planning Council on the resiliency effort. I'm happy to say I'm the chair of that. I will continue to be the chair of that as we reach out to our businesses and our quasi-government entities to become part of the compact going forward. And I want to remind everyone again that Commissioner Maroney's legacy dinner for law enforcement and first responders is on February 16th. We are totally sold out, but we do have a few individual tickets, Mr. Dean, that are available if you would wish to come and really get immersed in our county right away, February 16th at the Hilton Carillon, and welcome to Pinellas County. It is paradise, you'll learn. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's the end of my
Commissioner
report.
Eggers.
Thank you. Always selling. I like that. John would be very proud of you and
Oh, yes.
all your efforts.
Thank you.
Getting this program or his thing ready. What is it? A week from Saturday. So
Yes.
thank you for everything you're doing on that.
You're welcome. And the staff, because they have
yeah.
been extraordinary, both here and at the sheriff's office as well.
Just real quickly, Forward Pinellas, we're meeting next Wednesday, and the TMA, which is a regional group made up of the three representatives from 3 MPOs from Hillsborough, Pasco, and Pinellas, are meeting this Friday. The discussions on the Forward Pinellas are kind of starting to center around our Advantage Pinellas plan, which includes the long-range plan, and it includes a transit component. It's all supposed to be ready to go probably the end of this year. And it kind of speaks to where we're heading over the next 20 to 25 years, which I think is a really important component of the discussion with how we're going to get there for our kids and our grandkids, whether it's transportation projects or transit projects. So that picture as to where we're going is being developed, and I think it needs more development, and we're working on it. The second piece was the revenue workshop that we had a week or two ago now. And there was a lot of discussion on where we could get some funding, not only in the short term, but in the long run. And those discussions continue, and I suspect that there will be a lot of dialogue on that in the couple months ahead. And so I think as we do our due diligence for our residents, I think we need to continue to explore those revenue sources we have now, revenue sources that might be available, so that they too can see how it all fits together with delivering the product in the near term and long term. So there's a lot going on this year, I think, as far as developing that product and also developing a funding source. And I just want residents to stay tuned. There'll be plenty of opportunities to weigh in on that. Really this week at the MPO, we'll be talking a little bit in detail about the U.S. corridor study, U.S. Alt 19 corridor study. So that'll be some good discussion on that. On the TMA front, I think that's the regional group again. I think we'll be having a lot more discussion as to the role of the TMA, the role of the MPOs in the area, how we're going to advance projects or how we're going to speak with one voice in the area. How much of it will be MPO related, how much of it will be TMA, MPO, kind of a regional discussion, or will it continue under the TMA? I think we have some distinct difference of opinions on that, and that conversation will continue. My VA, or the Community Veterans Engagement Board, we meet, next time we meet is the February 25th. I'll bring a report back. That's our Veterans Engagement Board and how we interact with the VA. And have a voice with our veterans community. It's a good group, and I'll give you an update in the March meeting. Tampa Bay Water, we will be meeting this month to discuss further some of those discussions that we had here a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot going on in that front with regards to reclaimed water disposal by Tampa and how that relates to all of us at Tampa Bay Water and each of our communities. So that should be a spirited conversation. Pinellas Collaborative Lab, we meet March 6th. CGIS board, March 25th. So that's it for my boards. Just briefly on some other things. I too wanted to thank you, Barry, for the retreat. Aaron, really well done. I look forward to how we're going to have more discussion among commissioners and free you up for meetings with all of us individually. So that'll be good to see how that unfolds in March. But I think that'll be good for you, and I think it'll be good for us to have more conversation on some key issues. Continue to meet with Dr. Cho monthly to learn more about the social services and industry community that we're working on. Actually, in our last meeting, we got kind of spirited conversation going about creating maybe a pilot in one of the communities on suicide awareness. So he and I are kind of formulating some thoughts on that, and more to come on that. We'll talk about that in the weeks ahead. I know there's a forum on home rule tonight at St. Pete College, Seminole campus. I think it starts at 6:30, but I check on that to be sure. And then I guess the only thing I'd say additionally I meant to tell you, Mr. Reed or Mr. Dean, is on the chamber relationships. I've had a lot of calls recently about the interaction with the TDC and perhaps needing a little more clarity with how they plug in to funds and help advance the cause for our tourists that are here. A lot of them have information booths and information office hours, so there's been some issues there. So if you could maybe take a look at that as well, that would be great, and welcome again. And then finally, I would look to Raheem and staff to give us an update, if not today, as soon as possible, on the trail bridge that I call it a project from hell that continues to go on and on and on, and I'm just so frustrated with it that I know we finally came up with a delivery date of February 14th, and that was a couple months ago, and then all of a sudden, late last month, it moved back to the end of February. So I just wanted to get an update as soon as possible, and then maybe also how we're going to disseminate that information to our residents. Because I'm tired of getting out there and telling them anything, because every time I tell them something, it doesn't turn out to be the case. So if we could get an update on that, if not today, soon, and how we're going to get that information to our residents. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gerard.
Quickly, we have a Career Source Board meeting tomorrow. We'll probably award the RFP for marketing the Science Center, and probably to Smith & Associates, who ranked #1. I wanted to thank Mike Meidel, who's not here anymore, for all the work on the bylaws and the interlocal agreement. We'll be looking at that tomorrow, too. We had a Public Safety Coordinating Council meeting yesterday, and I want to echo Commissioner Peters' comments about how well most of our mental health providers work together. They're doing some amazing things with these little pieces, well, some of it not so little pieces of money, but with these very special projects, one of them being in-jail Marchment assessments, which really we shouldn't be doing them in jail. And we did talk quite a bit about a Marchment facility or a central receiving facility. More on that someday. We also talked about the need for some additional funds for the drug court for counseling. Apparently, we used to give them a lot more than we do now. I'm not too sure about the details on this, but they also had a federal grant to do counseling as a component of the whole drug court thing, which we all know is incredibly successful and serves an awful lot of people. And I'm just wondering if there's anything we can do about that. I know they talked to Deborah Berry about it. She's our liaison there too. So they may be putting in a decision packet, and if not, I will, because they're success rate for the people that go through it, I think now is like 66%, but it's dropping because they've had to cut back from 2 to 4 counseling sessions a week to just 1. And it makes a big difference because these are people that need a lot of support. So that's all.
Oh, thank you for bringing
Oh,
that
and I just wanted to say, I'm so excited that the governor's not going to raid the Sadowski funds in his budget. I'm just hoping, yay, I'm just hoping the rest of that the legislature can follow that example, because that would be very nice.
I thought that was exciting news as well.
And hopefully we'll put in our 2 cents about that and give him lots of thanks.
Madam Chair, before we adjourn, could I just mention that I also had a meeting with Dr. Cho this last week, and I was very disturbed by the conversation that we started to have with regard to the rate of suicides in our county, especially with our young people, and in all of the work that's going on in our Health and Human Services Department. I would really like to see, Lourdes, if you can come back with some recommendations about things that we could do for that particular audience, because he's very worried about it. And when he told me the numbers, I was just stunned. So to Commissioner Egger's point, something's going on. And in terms of the age group that was talking about, I don't think it can all be lumped into, oh, it's just a mental health issue. I think there's got to be something else there, which I'd really be interested in what your thoughts are, Lourdes.
Yeah, and the disturbing information was that in Pinellas County, the suicide rates are going up.
Yeah.
In the state, they're going down overall. So we're going in the wrong direction. I know there's lots of reasons. It's not simple answers to that. And I know that he's hoping to get some input from that study being done by the USF and Baycare, but we'll stay tuned on that to see some of those. They're drilling down a little bit, hopefully, into some of
Did you
that.
discuss at all, either one of you, with him about, one reason we wanted the school nurses was it was another possible source of help
Safety
to
net.
the students in the schools that maybe,
I think that's hopeful.
I mean, I've
just way too
talked
soon.
to him
Yeah.
about it before, but,
Well, the thing is,
the behavioral screening and help.
The thing is, Commissioner Seal, on the school board, they probably get reports from those school nurses, but do we get them?
Well, the school nurses, I had talked to Dr. Cho about it before, so.
But I mean, I've never
Interesting to see.
seen a report on what are they identifying while they're there that could maybe help us help these kids.
Right. Let's ask for an update, maybe from the Pinellas County School System and Dr. Cho. Okay, great. I just want to mention one thing, which is a thanks to the Florida Botanical Gardens for the holiday lights. And it was pretty phenomenal again this year. They had over 300 volunteers and about 80,000 visitors. They did have some rain, so they didn't make as much money this time, but they did net about $147,000. So
Nice.
they're to be commended for this all volunteer run event on a nightly basis during the holidays. And so thank you to all who participated in that. Is there anything else from
But
anyone?
they just get more beautiful every year.
Yeah, they do. They do. Okay, we are adjourned.
Thank you.